Welcome back to Off the Console with me today is High Tech Lowlife, Gardiner, and our special guest today, Noah. And this is a podcast where we talk about everything new, exciting, tech, games. I don't remember the intro that we usually do, so I'm just going off on this. And also, a really special milestone happened. We hit 100 subs on our YouTube channel for Off the Console, and we're really excited. We're the Fediverse too. We're on there, and we're hitting a lot of downloads there too. And so, like, we're super excited. We're going to be bringing you lots of good stuff in the future. So, yeah, let's go through and introduce, I guess, a little bit. We'll start off with our guest, Noah.
Well, my name is Noah. I started and run Steam Deck HQ, which is a press outlet that specifies in Steam Deck, where we, cover the news, create guides, and review games on the Steam Deck and how they perform on there with optimized settings, so you can play the way you want to. So we'll sometimes provide settings if you want the best graphics, settings if you want the highest frame rate, and a balance of all of them if you so choose. Yeah, and that's what I do all day.
Go-to source for Steam Deck stuff.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you look up Steam Deck anything, almost always it's going to be in the top Google search. Top few.
I'm so glad Google's being nice to us.
You deserve it, man. You've been kicking ass.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been a long journey. It's been 2 years, longer than 2 years, which isn't that long, but it feels long.
It does feel very long. I could do a whole rant on that.
Right.
Okay, so just whoever's first, which is High Tech. What are you playing this week?
Shit, this is a hard one. I've been trying to explore my Steam library to see if there's any like hidden gems that maybe I've just been overlooking this entire time. You know how it is, man. Steam library, you have hundreds of games that you've probably never touched in your library. If you really think about it, it's a huge waste of money, but that's how Valve makes a ton of money.
Yep.
I mean, I open mine, but I don't play them. Oftentimes, I touch them, but not much.
Well, hey, that's still something.
That's more than me.
True.
That's more than I do with about 4,000 of my games. So.
Oh wow, you got me beat.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I only know one other content creator that's beaten you, and it's the Fox at 10,000 games.
Oh my god,
insane. He's the only person I've met that actually has more games than I do on Steam, and everyone else is a bit below, which, I was always proud of, but now I don't feel that pride anymore.
I thought I had a lot of games with 933 in my library, so.
Well, I would say that's still a lot. I just went overkill. Like I before doing all this, I was a collector, so I would just buy games to just put them in my library and be like, oh well, I can play them now since I have them, but I would never play them.
Wow,
I get that.
I've only met one other person that has more than you, Noah, and now I know two people that has more than like 6,000. That's crazy.
It's insane.
I think I have around 1,000.
I'll get there. I'll get there one day.
If it's Steam, I have around 1,000, and then if it's everything together, probably like 1,400 or something like that.
If we're combining others, then I definitely have more than like 4,500. But I really only look at Steam.
Yeah, I think I have about a little over 700. So I have the smallest library here.
You're also the youngest, so that makes sense.
Damn.
That's true. I think.
If you start reviewing games, you can start getting game review copies and stuff. That's how you build a high deck.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I can attest to that, yeah.
Yeah, I think I had like 500 games before I started doing YouTube. So yeah, I need to get my games up. So enough about me, though. What have you been doing, Gardiner?
Oh man, I've been playing Half-Life 2 Anniversary. Oh my god, it's so good.
Oh,
I've been listening to the developer commentary. That's really what I've been doing, and it is just, it's, as a game developer, it is something that like I relish, because you don't get a lot of insight into the development process, like and there's a lot of minutia, and there's a lot of like insider information that you just don't get in other places. And it's one of the things that I really appreciate about the way Valve has done their games, is that they like to share that stuff, even though they're like a notoriously closed company, you know. They like to give that kind of insight. And so the fact that, you know, Half-Life episode 1 and 2 had the developer commentary, but the original Half-Life 2 didn't have it, it's like, now that that's out, I'm all here for it. I'm all for it.
Oh man.
It's so interesting how Valve treats that. I don't know if any other company treats, and I see it as, you know, we talk about preservations of games and stuff like that, legacies, and doing that type of commentary is priceless.
Yeah.
To go back and listen to see how things were built, especially, you know, as we build some of our own games here. And I haven't got to it yet because I know it's going to be a time suck. I'm going to sit there and just all day.
Mm-hmm.
So Gardiner, I'm about to dive into the whole. I haven't watched the documentary yet. I'm about to dive into it this weekend. So,
dude, I just watched the documentary this week. It's so good. It's, oh my god, it's like Hollywood level. Like, I don't want to. It's like, especially towards the end where they're talking about the lawsuit. Like, you know the plot twist, right? You know what happens. How Valve manages to beat Vivendi. It's crazy. Have you watched the documentary, Noah?
No, I really haven't watched anything. I've been so preoccupied with yeah, it's
No.
yeah.
I made a video about like the 20th anniversary, and I talked about the documentary at length, and Danny O'Dwyer commented on my video. Like, dude, I was like, whoa, holy crap, Danny O'Dwyer watches my stuff. But yeah, no, it was super cool. Like the documentary, High Tech, like you said, it's really cool to see like that there's that level of like professional production in the games industry, you know, like High Tech, Secret Tape and No Clip. They're doing God's work as far as I'm concerned.
No Clip is definitely, you need to go watch more of their documentaries. They're really good.
Yeah.
They have one, I think, for Black Mesa.
Yeah.
And that I watched that was really good too.
Black Mesa or Half-Life? Because I remember the Half-Life one, the first one.
Maybe it was Half-Life.
They did a 20th anniversary Half-Life, and then Valve commissioned a 25th anniversary Half-Life.
Yes.
So yeah, they've done extensive Half-Life coverage.
But No Clip's done other stuff too. So
yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. They have other documentaries. So as far as what I'm playing is that I'm going to be playing Half-Life this weekend. I haven't played a whole lot, and but I have been looking into Stalker 2 a lot because that's the game I want to play soon. And I don't know if you guys have seen. It does not play on Steam Deck, Noah. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I know. I tried many things. None of them worked. No.
Man, you got to. I'm gonna have to pick your brain sometime on all that because
By all means.
I've written some utilities for the Steam Deck over the years, but on like some tips and tricks and stuff like that I can script out. But yeah, Stalker 2 is one that is buggy. It's a true Stalker. If you don't know what Stalker is, like the original one, it came out buggy, but was like raw and survival-esque. Like it's one of the most survival-oriented games out there, and it's so hardcore at times where you're dying all the time. And I never beat it because I ran into a bug, and I got too far to where I wanted to go through it again. So I'm really hesitant to pick up Stalker 2, but I think I'm going to do it. So
it's going to be worth it, especially if you enjoy the original Stalker. It really does feel like a Stalker game, which is probably the best that they could possibly do, especially with how difficult their development process was. So I would say this is probably the best that they could have done. And I think honestly, they succeeded. Like, yeah, it's buggy. Even I found like tons of different little bugs. I think someone found one. I did a little video about how it's running on the Steam Deck, and someone found a bug where it was taking a long time for the world to load in. And right as soon as all of it loaded in, there were trees flying around in the background. They just popped out. And I didn't notice it before, so I saw their comment. I went back and I just saw a tree pop out. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even see that. So yeah, it that's part of the charm in a way. Like, I wouldn't say it becomes too overwhelming where you can't enjoy the game, and I think that's the biggest thing about it. So I would say it's still worth playing for sure.
It's definitely one I'm going to pick up when it a little less bugs. I'm not shy of bugs. I think they can be fun. But my first experience with Stalker, I didn't get to finish it because I got so far and I did not want to replay it, but it was so fun. So,
well, I think as far as I'm aware, the day one patch that released did fix a good chunk of them. But like trying to review the game with all of those before those bugs were patched, that was hard.
Okay.
It was really hard.
Do you finish all your games that you review, or is this too much secrets? Okay.
It's something that I do feel very strongly about. If I'm going to review a game, the least I can do is to play from start to finish. I don't, unless it's a game where I can more easily 100%, I don't 100% it. I have to experience the start of the game and the end of the game. So I just don't feel like, personally, when it comes to reviewing, I don't feel like anyone can give a solid review for a game unless they've really played through it.
Yeah.
So
so
and it's
hard.
the same
That's
with like
so
on the performance side of it too. Like what if there's one part of a game that really performs poorly and it goes on for the rest of the game, like maybe the last 20%, like Baldur's Gate 3. What if I only played Act 1 and 2? I might say that it's pretty good on the Steam Deck, but as soon as you hit Act 3, no. So I feel strongly about playing through the games that I review, yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. That's impossible for me. I can't do that much.
To be honest, that I before SCHQ, I almost never finished games. This is what kind of pushed me to actually start playing through the games that I have. And then I just started getting more and more, and now I don't play my backlog anymore.
You need to start doing a backlog review session.
If I had the time, we're working on expanding. Like I'm bringing on more freelancers to work with us. So one day we're gonna get there.
One day, yeah. No, it's impressive still, nonetheless. I usually do, if I do anything like that, it's usually overviews or something that's like, I played the first few hours and then I read up on like the ending and to give recommendations on like stuff like that. But I mad respect. What are you playing these days, Noah?
So the ones I'm playing currently are still under embargo, but like recently I did play this new roguelike called Dungeon Clawler, and I love it. So it takes there's been a bunch of roguelikes that kind of take these mundane or different activities that you wouldn't think about and turn them into a game, like kind of like what Balatro did where they took poker and turned into a roguelike. So Dungeon Clawler takes those like arcade claw machines and turns into a roguelike.
The like really rigged ones?
Love it.
The really like rigged ones where you like don't win.
Yeah,
unless
so
the
you have to like
machine tells you
move.
to.
So it's all in a 2D plane. So you have to move your claw from left to right, and then you choose the spot where you want to, grab down. So it goes down, tries to get everything. All the objects in the machine are all physics based, so they can they can just fly away. Sometimes it's really obnoxious, but as you're playing through, you'll get new objects and you can upgrade objects, and they all go into the machine. So the machine can have like 30 to 40 different objects, and you choose which ones you want to get. You want to get ones that actually attack the enemy, that give you more defense, that modify the other items you have, give you buffs, that kind of thing. It's made by Stray Fawn Studio, and I'm really sorry if I've butchered their name, but it's the ones who created The Wandering Village. I really hope I'm getting that name right too. So, I loved it, and I would highly recommend checking it out. It just released into early access, but that's the big one that I was playing the last week, and I loved it.
Wow,
nice.
I want to give it a game.
So,
I want to give it a shot.
Yeah, there's so many games. So many games I want to give a shot. So you dive into games a lot more. Do you dive into a lot of hardware or modifications and stuff like that?
I would say games more often than hardware, but I do tend to dive into hardware on top of that. Like, uh, I want to say last year I was doing hardware reviews as well for other handhelds. So like I worked with Ioneo 1X, and I have a solid amount of their hardware just in my cabinet over there still. And I have reached out to work with them on future hardware as well. But I think this year I decided to start focusing more on games and kind of build that out a little bit more first, since I think we can offer, or SDHQ can offer, a unique perspective when it comes to hardware, because we focus so much on games. We can test the newest games on this hardware too. And it's great to know like what like some of the classics are, like Cyberpunk or Black Myth Wukong are running on these, but there's also a lot of people that want to know like how is Indiana Jones going to run on them. And with us focusing on games, we're in the unique position where we can say how it's going to run on like day one. So I've been building out the games for the most part, but we still do some hardware stuff here and there, and I'm going to ramp that up a little bit more. I'm probably going to be next year versus the rest of this year, but something that I'm open to and I have done in the past.
Okay. Yeah, it's really hard to like balance all those things, so
it is. That's part of the reason why I focused on games more, because it was hard to balance, especially with the influx of games coming in, and it hasn't really slowed down. Like our October was a nightmare. It was just trying to balance Metaphor, Sword Art Online, East X, Unknown 9. What else? We got so many other games on top of that. It was just way too much happening all at once, and it's been like that almost every month this year. So I decided to just kind of laser focus instead of trying to do too much.
Yeah, I can't blame you there.
Yeah, to be honest, I couldn't imagine doing 6 Ioneer reviews in the span of like 3 months. That's crazy.
It's a lot. Like I think it becomes easier once you have a process. Like if you know exactly what you're going to test, depending on the type of hardware it is. Like, is it, a Windows PC, or is it a Windows handheld? Is it an Android handheld? Is it going to be Linux based? Like, I think it becomes easier when you know exactly what you're going to be getting, so that you know exactly how you're going to test it. 'Cause I would say there's different tests for each type of hardware, or each type of handheld in this case. Because like when I did Android handhelds, I didn't even think to try to playing the games that I would play on like the Steam Deck. I went more into emulation, and I pushed to see what emulators or what types of, or which consoles from emulators performed the best, how they ran, how it felt, playing Android games on there, that kind of thing. So I think once you have, like, I'm sure this is what Retro Game Core does, because he's a nut. Like he does so much. So he I'm sure he has like some method to his madness. Like he knows exactly what he's going to do based on the hardware that he's going to get.
Yeah, mad props to Retro Game Core, who we also we're gonna advertise that we featured him in a previous episode of this podcast. Anyways, mad props to him though, because I don't think I could do what he does. Like, I know he does it as a full-time job, but even if like I were a full-timer, I don't know if I would like go through the madness that is reviewing like 7 Ambernick handhelds that all have the same specs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he knows, since they all have the same specs, I'm sure he knows exactly what to do for each one, but it's got to be a little bit monotonous.
Absolutely, man.
So, here's the thing. Noah, you play a lot of games, so I think your insight into our main topic for today is going to be pretty interesting. So the nominees for Game of the Year for 2024 came out earlier this week, and I was shocked by some of the choices here. Now, we talked about it last week, how they opened up DLCs and some other stuff to being able to be awards, right? I think part of the game of the year award, that is. So I'm really like, you've probably played all of these, or at least played most of them, at least in the game of the year, maybe all of these in every category. But I am really interested to see your intake on your take on this.
Yeah. So for game of the year, I think they are all solid options, and if I think the only one that really sticks out to me that I don't think, or I think is the most the one that maybe shouldn't be there, would probably be Erdtree. And I guess it just depends how you classify what a full video game is. Because Shadow of the Erdtree is a DLC. You can't access it immediately. You know, it's something where you need the base game to play it. And Elden Ring already had a release in the past. So it being back in DLC form, where it's a fantastic DLC. Don't get me wrong. Like, I would consider an essential if you have Elden Ring. But should it be nominated as its own game as part of the game of the year? I feel like there could have been, better options to put there. But of the ones that we do have, personally, I think Balatro should win.
Oh, okay.
Like, all the games that are listed there are amazing, but based on just the sheer amount of, I guess, attention that is had since its release, and consistently the attention to it, I think Balatro takes the cake for me.
Interesting. So just to help clarify for some people that are listening and maybe didn't see the list, Game of the Year nominees are Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor, and I can't even Refantasio, and just to comment real quick on that, Noah, if they packaged Erdtree as, let's say, Elden Ring Erdtree, not a DLC, would that change your mind on the Bella outro kind of thing?
I don't think it would change my mind on Balatro, purely because, again, Balatro's impact has been monumental ever since its release. I don't think I can get around that. I think the only game that really has a chance to unseat it would probably be Black Myth Wukong. And, Wukong's a great game, but personally, I didn't feel like it did anything different that I haven't seen before. Like, I've seen more faster paced Souls-like games, and Black Myth Wukong might not be considered a Souls-like game, but I consider it one. And they're great, and Black Myth is a really great game, and it absolutely deserves to be on that list. No, 100% deserves to be there. But it didn't wow me with uniqueness like Balatro did. And even like Astrobot wowed me a bit more too. And it's, it's a 3D platformer, but it's the only game outside of like the Super Mario series that has given me that holy crap kind of feeling when playing it in like 3D platformers. But I don't know if I don't think anything will change my mind that Balatro should win Game of the Year just based on the sheer impact that it's had. I mean, it's been at the top of the charts and talked about everywhere ever since it was released. And even when it released on like mobile platforms, on like phones, it's at the top of the charts there too. Like, I don't think I can ignore that kind of impact. And that I think that's why it will always take the cake for me, at least for this year. For Erdtree, I think if it was packaged like that, it would still, I would say that, yeah, it could be on that list. If it was more standalone, then yes, I would say.
I only asked that because experiences, it's really hard because putting DLC on this is kind of just a little ridiculous, but at the same time, if it's that amazing, like Witcher 3, their DLCs, I think, are better than the base game, in my opinion. If they put that on Game of the Year, I'd probably vote for it. Just because best experience I've had gaming that year. Now we got your vote on this. Gardiner, what's your vote? And then let's see what High Tech has to say. I'm curious.
So besides Balatro, the only game that I had heard of before this list came out was Black Myth Wukong. Does that make me old?
Maybe
Maybe a little.
You didn't know about Metaphor I forgot that final. Okay,
Dude, Metaphor ReFantazio, the first time I heard about that was I was watching one of Rich's videos and he was talking about that and I was like, what the hell is Metaphor ReFantazio? What does that even mean? So like I legitimately Balatro's the only game on that list that I've played and I love it. So that's going to be my vote right there.
So just I have not played any of the games on this Game of the Year list this year. I've played only like apparently substandard games. No, I've only played off the cuff games that are like not or catching up on my backlog, whatever it is. Like I did a lot of catching up on my backlog with Steam Deck, but I had not played any of these yet. They're all games I want to get to, but I have not played them yet. So that's funny that you have only played one, so at least you got one up on me.
I mean, if you get the chance, do you like the Persona series, or have you played the Persona series?
I don't think I've ever heard of that either.
really.
Persona's pretty good.
Is it?
Persona 5, I'm still trying to get through that too. That's why I haven't got to Metaphor, because I'm halfway through Persona 5 on the Steam Deck.
No,
Nice.
Metaphor is a great. I would say it's a step above Persona 5 in terms of mechanics for sure. The story is still very solid, but I really like some of the new mechanics that they introduced with Metaphor, with the archetype system, and I do like that you can attack some of the weaker enemies really easily outside of combat and just kill them, and you get experience. You know, nice little way to grind without having to go into turn-based battles the entire time.
That sounds a little bit like Earthbound. Like once you get to a certain level in Earthbound, you don't have to fight low-level enemies. You just run into them and
essentially,
defeat them.
yeah. I think the first time that I started seeing this, like on like a more recent scale, was probably Trails Through Daybreak. They had something very similar to that. But yeah, no, Metaphor is a really incredible game, and it would probably be my personal game of the year if Balatro wasn't on there, because like. I feel like they really hit it out of the park.
I was gonna say it's not. I haven't even played it yet, but Metaphor's the one that I would almost vote for. Even though Astrobot, the demo that I played on PS5 was great. I haven't played this though, but the demo that they had was amazing, and my kids love it. Like, so it's like a win for me because everyone enjoys it. But High Tech, what are you enjoying? Out of this list, I guess.
Well, if Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree was its own game, I would probably vote for that. But I'm not going to vote for a DLC based on principle, regardless of how good the DLC is. The DLC is really good, but still. I think my vote is going to go for Balatro because it's the only game on this list that has done something different, and it's carried almost entirely through the strength of the gameplay alone. There's no characters, no voice acting, no story, it doesn't have like super detailed graphics in terms of like super high fidelity graphics either. And unlike Astrobot, it doesn't rely on cameos from PlayStation's history.
I don't think that's a knock. That's not fair to knock that.
To be honest, that's probably one of the highlights for me. I love seeing some of those characters return, and it makes me actually more upset that PlayStation or Sony doesn't go back to those series. And like, I would give anything for a new Ape Escape game. Come on, please.
I'm not saying as a knock. I'm not saying as a knock against Sony or Astrobot. What I'm saying is that Balatro making it this far without relying on everything else that makes a game besides, I don't know, graphics, like cards, the gameplay, the strength of the gameplay alone, carrying it is something you don't really see from Game of the Year, from like a Game of the Year category. Because usually, Game of the Year categories, the candidates are generally speaking games that have either really good graphics or like a really compelling story, or in the case of FromSoftware, is a Souls-like. I guess I'm not sure. Dark Souls does a lot of things.
Creative games tend to be like
games.
and creative games can be from a bunch of different elements, right? And Balatro would be an interesting one because it's card based, and it's so. If this wins, it will be probably the I don't want to weirdest game of the year because it's so different than all the other game of the year winners in the past.
I think the word you're looking for is controversial.
I don't even know if I'd say it's controversial. Just
I-
unique.
no, I-
I'd just
I-
say unique. Weird is just a fun way to put it, but unique.
I think I agree with that. Like, I think it would be probably the most unique game that's won Game of the Year. Like, I feel like all Game of the Years do follow a similar trend. And personally, as much as I want Balatro to win, I have an inkling that Black Myth will probably win. You know, because it did hit really hard when it did come out, and it was a massive success, and it's very heavily influenced by a very interesting mythology, and I think it fits the category of Game of the Year more, but I still personally believe Balatro's impact was significant, not just in terms of the game itself. Like you said, they didn't rely on anything really other than a very addicting gameplay loop, which succeeds phenomenally. But this is an indie game as well. This is a solo developer. So on top of it not having those elements, it's also an independently developed game made by one person. And I don't think any game that's been Game of the Year has been developed like that. So I think it would be massive for the indie scene as well. I think it would be a great way of showing, like, you know, indies are just as good, if not better, than a lot of bigger productions.
Yeah, I mean that's that's pretty much only the stuff that I play is indie games, like, and then Half-Life, or like Valve games,
Yeah, but
so
the size of their team's like indie, right?
yeah, they're pretty small. They're less than 300 people at Valve, and that's including like the support staff and stuff.
That's like everyone, not the
Yeah.
people that like they have multiple projects going on all the time, and like the way that they do stuff is fascinating. But another topic, another time.
Yeah. So I will say one more thing too. I will say I've noticed a lot of trends surrounding Balatro. The biggest trend on the internet is like people saying, "What the hell is Balatro? How did a card game get over I don't know, Persona 3 or Stellar Blade or whatever?" And then later someone buys them the game, they play it, and they're like, "Oh, my bad. I didn't know how good it was." And then they completely change their mind. And it's crazy. Also, another thing, this isn't a topic that's listed, but Balatro's mobile release managed to knock Minecraft off of the top chart. Like paid games chart.
Yeah.
Again, just in Balatro's impact across the board ever since its release has been astronomical. I don't think any game has come close to it this year.
Yeah, I'd love to see more indie games get this kind of recognition because there's so many great innovative titles and they never get the kind of recognition that they deserve.
Yeah.
I feel like haven't they usually in the Game of the Year like have one indie game? It seems like in the past, or maybe I'm just thinking of AA.
I mean, it's more AA stuff that as far as I can recall.
Like some
I don't see
indie
many
games.
indies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the worst part about it is I feel like indies are really the only games that can and do take a lot of risks and try to do something different. And I think Balatro is a great example of that. I don't know any AA or AAA studio that would think, "Hey, let's make a poker roguelike game." I don't think anyone would really attempt doing that other than, an independent studio or a solo developer. And I think that that kind of motive it goes across, through all kinds of indie games. I mean, the game I just talked about, Dungeon Clawler, is a claw machine roguelike. I don't think any AA or AAA studio would try making something like that because they don't know how it's going to perform.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like what will win. As much as Black Myth, I saw all the trailers. I've seen all the stuff on this. I've read the stuff. I just haven't played them. Black Myth didn't seem very interesting to me. Even though the mythology behind it's awesome. I love that part. It's just I always saw the gameplay and I don't know what it is. It just didn't. But then again, I haven't beaten Elden Ring either. I play Elden Ring every once in a while. The Souls-likes are not my jam, even though I do understand like Elden Ring is like a classic and I need to go through and play it. Bloated is like, I like card games, but I don't know what it is. I knew that it was going to be addictive and I haven't touched it, but I'm going to. I promise. By the time we do the live stream.
It's dangerous. It's really dangerous. As soon as you play it, it's going to be very hard to put it down. Like that I've almost fallen back into that trap a couple of times lately where I would play one round and I just couldn't stop playing and I just had to force myself to stop because I needed to play other games. It's really hard to stay away from it. But Black Myth itself is a really solid game. It's just like you said, it just doesn't. It didn't feel like it did anything I haven't seen before.
Yeah. So. No, I'll have to. I have to give all these a try, obviously. But other categories. There's like so many other categories. I'm curious.
So, I was scrolling through the list and I came upon best performance and I was like, ooh, they're appreciating games that are well optimized. And then I was like, what the hell is Humberly Gonzalez?
That's my favorite game.
Yeah, I realized
what are you
it
doing?
was
You're
about
knocking against my favorite game, Humberly Gonzalez.
Dude,
yeah,
that
I realized
needs
it was
to
like,
be a category is most optimized and least buggy. Like they need to do something like that.
Well, imagine what the industry would be like if they actually appreciated that kind of stuff. You know,
I think
quality software.
That'd be an all
they
indie
need
section.
to start doing that. I think they really need to start doing that because there's so many releases, especially on PC, so many releases where it's just so buggy and they need this like day one patch, which I feel like is such a ridiculous norm that we've settled into where we just expect games to have a day one patch. And it's just kind of ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Games. So here's the thing. Games have gotten ridiculously more complicated over the decades. People, I've had to talk about this topic so many times because people are like, well, they used to make games flawlessly, 20, 30 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, well, first off, they had to ship it that way. And they couldn't update it. Second, they were drastically simpler. There is not the complexities. Like once you put physics in alone, that's when you saw a lot of bugs start to go into games. Once you start adding physics, then things become crazy. And so I give a little leeway to that, but some of these day one patches, you're right, like are just ridiculous. And it really shows. It's more or less, I think, the publisher and the top, brass saying, hey, it has to be released at this time. Doesn't matter if it's ready or not. We'll make it ready. And then on top of that, Steam, it's not as bad, but on the consoles, they have to start printing, or if it's a disc, they have to start creating those discs early. So, yeah, going gold is not as much of a thing anymore. Going day one patches is a thing now.
Yeah, it's just the way the industry is. They would put a best day one patch category in before they put in best optimized.
You know what? I'm here for it. At this point, I'm here for it.
I would love that. So I think more than that, the thing that really gets me when it comes to like games and how they release is how much some titles rely on upscaling over more optimization going into it. Like I understand that for some games they're so advanced that they really need upscaling, but I don't feel like I've seen a game that has been so advanced where the only thing I could think of is upscaling needs to be in there. Because like there are some games where they ask for upscaling just to play at 1080p, which I don't think should be a thing.
Is that with what hardware though?
Well,
just any hardware?
Usually when they're with the recommended specs, they'll always put what kind of upscaling that they would recommend. The one that comes to my mind, it might have changed from later patches, but if I remember correctly, Alan Wake 2 was one of those games where they recommended upscaling for almost all of their recommended specs.
Yeah, that's a hard one because Alan Wake 2 is so good, and the way that they do their
fantastic
filters, it doesn't matter to me. Upscaling is one of those weird things. I think it's a huge win for the industry, but it's for the mobile market, I think, more for handhelds, that is. Yeah. So for Steam Deck, awesome. Do it. So we can play any game. Let's upscale. Let's optimize it for that. okay, I understand that. But
Okay.
for beefy games, that's bizarre. And I don't know. Doing Unreal Engine and optimizing it can definitely be done. And if they actually hired people to like they could hire teams that are specialized in optimizing and optimize a lot of these games. They don't. I don't know why. But
Money.
Yeah.
I guess, but technically, if it was money, if they had good auditors, like they would see, like, no, it would be worth the money to do that. They're just crazy. We already know, like I did a poll on my channel earlier this week, like, what are you here for with the game industry right now? Like, what's you're most interested in? People are like the downfall of AAA. That's what they put as the winning topic.
I think there is some legitimacy to that, though. I think some AAA games are truly amazing, and I don't want to see like all of them go down, but I think some of the bigger studios or bigger publishers have gotten very comfortable being a little bit more on the greedy side. You know, and I think the one that comes to my mind the most is probably Ubisoft.
Oh God.
You know, with their reliance on the, you know, Ubisoft Connect, and then the way they started going into Epic Games and they just refused to come back to Steam. And that's changed recently. I mean, they just released Star Wars Outlaws on Steam, and they're releasing Assassin's Creed Shadows on Steam day one. So it looks like they're starting to turn over and be like, okay, maybe we should not keep doing this. But they were very pushy about going into their own, going through their own DRM, and you still do have to. It's just now you can do it through Steam. And then there's like PlayStation, when they started injecting the PlayStation overlay into their games, and you know that locks out the entire multiplayer section of Ghost of Tsushima. Like, we can't play that, and even though it's not around anymore, Concord, we wouldn't be able to play that because there's no support for Linux. So. And then we have companies like Rockstar with GTA, and they implemented BattleEye into GTA Online, but refused to enable it for Linux, so you can't play it on Steam Deck anymore. Like, I can see why a lot of people would want the downfall of AAA games, but then you still have games like, you know, that are on the Game of the Year list, like Metaphor ReFantazio. Like, that's a AAA game, but it's amazing.
But their studio and their and is it just Atlas?
Yeah, it's Atlas.
Yeah.
They have a very strong direction. Like they make very similar games. They're very thought provoking, and I'd be really shocked if they deviated. A lot of I feel like I believe it's a Japanese studio too, right?
Yeah, they're under Sega too.
Yeah. A
Which
lot of
Sega's a
Japanese studios
fantastic
tend to go that way.
right now. They've been
Sega
crushing
is.
it.
So
My thing is, like, I would really like the downfall of publishers. I don't want AAA developers, like studios, to go away, because what I would like to see is AAA studios making indie style games and taking risks and doing things. And I feel like it's the publishers who have like all of the financial incentive to like give these studios tons and tons of money so that they're in debt to them, essentially. It's a totally inverted way of like being creative. It doesn't make any sense.
It's predatory.
It's predatory, exactly.
It's very predatory. It's very what it is that what happened is a lot of money came into games, which helped drive, like, we can make a living off of it. But with it came investors, and when you get investment companies, and you're going to get predatory investment companies come in, and what they'll do is they'll buy up companies for their IP and stuff like that, start harvesting.
Embracer.
Yeah.
That's my first thought.
And so, exactly, you're going to run into that type of thing, which is, it's hard, because if AAA dies, those developers are going to be hurting really hard for a while. And so what needs to happen either is a huge restructuring of AAA, like leadership at the top that actually cares, or monopoly, breaking up monopolies or something like that. But I don't know if that would ever happen.
I highly doubt Monopoly breakup would happen. I think a restructuring is a really good idea, though. Like, at least for the companies that are pushing it too much, I would say PlayStation, Xbox is absolutely pushing it way too much. EA definitely does to some degree as well. Rockstar has been, but there, I think a restructuring for these companies with leadership that actually cares about the games and cares about the gamers themselves would be really beneficial to the industry as a whole.
So I do want to say that I just want to say that the games industry, that's part of the reason why I want Balacha to win, because I want the major AAA developers, publishers, so to speak, I just want them to see this game that won Game of the Year, and it's almost entirely gameplay focused, and it's very unlikely that this will happen, but I ideally would want them to look at this game and then just recalibrate the entire AAA games industry to focus more on gameplay. Because let's look at Metaphor ReFantasia. That's you would consider that a AAA game, right?
Yeah,
it's AAA.
But I would also probably consider it to be a lot cheaper than something like Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, right?
Maybe
not a lot cheaper, but part of the issue
probably because there's no licensing going on.
I would say Metaphor is probably cheaper to make, but I don't know how much cheaper.
But I think another thing too is that live service games are infamously expensive. Like, think about it. I remember many years ago, people were trying to launch their own MMORPGs to try to compete with World of Warcraft. But developers oftentimes, they didn't realize how expensive running an MMO really was. And not to say that live service games are as expensive as MMOs, but I kind of see it that way.
No, but the way the data flows, they can get about this very similar. Now, the difference is back when World of Warcraft first came out, I know people didn't like their monthly fees, but for back then running those types of servers, that's made a lot of sense. Nowadays, it's fraction of the price to run those same servers. And so live action can be pricey. I wouldn't run a live action unless I was making a monthly income personally. I just wouldn't, because you gotta have to rely on that income over time to make sure because if someone buys it once and plays it for 5 years, it might not end up being a win on that.
I think when it comes to live service, it can be extremely profitable overall, though.
Yeah,
especially if they do. I think the monthly thing would be probably the most appealing to publishers. But I think to really make the most money, the whole season and battle pass style is doing the best.
Let me just add a correction. When I say monthly, I meant buying skins.
Okay.
All that monthly income comes
the
from
whole battle pass idea.
Battle passes, whatever it is. That's what I kind of mean by monthly income. They hide a monthly payment behind loot boxes and everything else. Is kind of how they do it nowadays.
See, I was thinking something like Final Fantasy 14 or World of Warcraft. Final Fantasy 14 is probably, I would consider one of the most successful MMOs. Or quote unquote live service that exists, but I think of all the games I've seen that do live service, I think Fortnite has the best structure right now. And I think is the most appealing overall for me. But everyone's trying to just chase it.
It's not a games industry without chasing the coattails of a successful game, right?
Yeah, it's true. Though if only they would chase Balacha.
They might. I've seen a bunch of indie games try to make casino-like games. Think Balacha, but instead of poker, it's roulette or something like that. Speaking of which,
it's true, but I want to see the bigger studios chase it, not just indies.
Yeah. So it also says best game direction. I see that best game direction is just the same nominees as Game of the Year. What is game direction really in this case?
Directors directing the game, right?
Yeah,
sure.
I think that's probably the best way to explain it. So Game of the Year, I guess, looks at the overall game, whereas the best game direction is how is the game structured? What choices did they make to create the game, and how well does it all work together to get from one to the other? That's my interpretation. I don't actually know the specific description behind best game direction, but I assume it's closer to best director when it comes to movies.
Yeah, it's piecing the whole thing together, the whole game and everything. It's an interesting category though. And it's interesting that they chose the same games exactly as Game of the Year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Like, I like Balatro, but going based off of my definition, I don't know if it would be there.
I would not. Like, Last of Us would be a good
Based off my
example of like
definition.
how the direction goes in that game and how the story goes and everything. Like, they pieced it together really well. But yeah, like some of these other ones, it's interesting.
Maybe
Yeah.
best game direction is something more akin to like the best gameplay itself. Like instead of saying best gameplay, it's best gameplay. You know, I could maybe see that because I would say Balatro has some of the best gameplay elements that I've seen in most games. But
It's
why
not
not?
gameplay, though.
I
It's
don't know.
direction. It's
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's just an idea.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
I'm really curious. Best adaptation. Like, did you guys watch anything this year that was based on any of these?
No.
It's probably
I have not seen any
Arcane.
of these.
Arcane's probably going to win, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Arcane is 100% going to win. Even though I really liked Fallout, the only two that I did see was Arcane and Fallout. But Arcane is amazing. Everyone should watch it. Even if you don't like League of Legends, season 1 and 2 is just amazing.
When did Amazon buy MGM Studios?
That's a good
question. Let me find out. I'll do some research for us right here. Live in the flesh.
And I didn't know that there was a Knuckles show, or is that a movie? Paramount.
It's a show.
I think it's a limited show.
Yeah,
a
it's like
limited
6
series.
episodes or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
It was 2023. May 2023 was when Amazon bought MGM, which is crazy. I haven't
bought
heard
it
of this.
They bought it from Disney, right? Because Disney owned MGM.
They must have. I mean, I can see
Weird.
Amazon buying it. They have Amazon money.
Disney has Disney money.
They
That's
have-
interesting.
Amazon has Amazon money.
I think Amazon money is a little more valuable than Disney money at this point.
Maybe.
I don't know. Disney's kind of going up and down, but they're still one of the most iconic studios in existence. I don't think that's going to change.
Well,
See,
and their holdings is where you want to look too. So Amazon burns through money because they're always growing the beast. But so anyone else like see any of the like? We already like established like Arcane's gonna win, but
Yeah. I haven't seen any of them. I've heard how amazing Arcane is, and it's on my list. And Like a Dragon Yakuza was also on my list, but I don't know. I've heard some info about it. I love the series. It's my one of my 3 favorite JRPG series is the whole Like a Dragon Yakuza series. And I don't know. I've heard mixed feelings about the show. I don't know if I'm like really as interested in it anymore, especially since the series is so well made. Like, it's incredible. So
I've heard it wasn't a great adaptation, but I also haven't seen Like a Dragon Yakuza yet, so perhaps maybe I'll watch that later. In the meantime, though, there's also Best Narrative, and I'm inclined to believe that Metaphor is going to win that one. I don't know what you guys think.
to me, it's between the top 3. It's Rebirth, Infinite Wealth, or Metaphor. I really liked Infinite Wealth. I really, really liked it, especially if you follow along with the series. There were so many moments and callbacks, and just seeing how Kiryu is sent off, like, it's beautiful. But it's going to be really hard for Infinite Wealth to topple Rebirth or Metaphor. So it's one of those 3 for me, and honestly, I think it's going to be Rebirth. As much as I would rather it be Metaphor, I think Rebirth is going to take it.
it'll be interesting to see.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be. Silent Hill 2 is a little bit of an interesting one there too.
Mm-hmm. And Silent Hill 2 is fantastic. It's just I don't think it holds a candle narratively. I don't think it holds a candle to those top 3.
That's kind of like my point. Is like it's an interesting one. What other? Because I don't think we're gonna have time to cover every single one of these, but
No, I don't think so.
what Gardner? Which one are you most interested in? I'm curious.
In terms of category?
Yeah, like there's the independent games. I'm assuming maybe you've played some of those.
Oh yeah, dude. Independent games, Animal Well. That's my clear winner. Animal Well has like consumed so much of my time this year. God damn, Animal Well is so good. It's a Metroidvania with like a very distinct pixel art aesthetic, but like everything's like covered in like beautiful shaders. I don't know, and the gameplay tells you absolutely nothing. You have to figure everything out like it's 1986, dude. Like, it's freaking awesome. I love Animal Well so much. That is my personal game of the year, probably. I absolutely love Animal Well.
I want to figure out.
Animal Well is amazing, absolutely phenomenal. I've had the pleasure of at some of the events actually talking to the developer behind it. His name is Billy, and I worked with him doing some optimization and testing before release 2. It's so phenomenal. Like I think the best independent game and best debut indie game are probably my two favorite categories right now, just because every single game there is just fantastic. Like, and they all feel very unique in what they do on top of that. So, you know,
yeah, I've given Manor Lords a try. I haven't played a lot of it, but it's exactly my kind of game.
It's fantastic.
Oh man, it's so good.
So there is one category I want to rant about. Best fighting game. Multiverses is on there again. Despite Multiverses winning like 2 or 3 years ago, and they shut the game down for like a year and a half, only to bring it back even slower. And there's just a lot of baffling decisions on like character balancing and whatnot, because I understand it's supposed to be like a 2v2 game. But I don't think it's deserving of being even on the list.
No. I mean, didn't we talk about that last week? Like, Multiverses had some issue again last week.
Yeah, we talked about it in the past episode. And
I think it was WB as a whole, but yes, Multiverses was included too.
They were like talking about how much of a disappointment it was or whatever in terms of revenue. Yeah.
I think the two on the fighting game that like made me kind of do a double take was probably Multiverses and then the Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection. But I was thinking about it a little bit more. Just Marvel vs. Capcom does have some new elements to it that were never in the original games, like online multiplayer. So I would say that it deserves a spot there more than Multiverses does. But if I'm looking at who will actually win, I think it's going to be between Dragon Ball and Tekken. I think one of those two are going to take the cake. I think it's going to end up being Tekken because it's a much better technical fighter. But personally, Dragon Ball is my favorite fighting game this year.
Really? I do like the Dragon Balls. I'll have to give it a try.
I'm a big Budokai Tenkaichi fan, and I've loved it ever since the release. So when they announced the next entry in the series, I was already hooked. Like I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other categories I honestly don't care about, like best esport or best esport athlete or best esport team. And usually the content creator of the year doesn't matter that much, but it's going to be an interesting fight between, it's realistically just a fight between Queso, who I don't watch his streams, and Usada Pecora, a VTuber from Hololive, who I also don't watch her streams either.
Interesting.
What I'm actually curious about, and I'd like to get your guys' take on it, is the most anticipated game category. Because I think whenever someone sees it, I think everyone's going to immediately go to GTA 6. But I'm curious where you guys stand on like what your most anticipated game next year is.
Half-Life 3.
Metroid Prime 4 for me, but I'm not going to buy it because I hate Nintendo.
Oh shit! Oh, late. I don't know, man. Out of this entire list,
yeah,
I'm not sure. I mean, GTA 6 is probably gonna be one I buy for sure. I don't know. They're all games I want to try out. Probably, yeah. I think I'm curious to see what Kojima will do with Death Stranding too, though. If Kojima really is a genius, or if he's running.
He's a genius.
Yeah, he's a genius. There's no doubt
geniuses can have flops. Come on.
Yeah, No,
Like,
even with its flaws, I really like Death Stranding.
Yeah.
And it's hard to look at Kojima's work and say that he doesn't have a very intricate genius to him with what he tries to do. I really like that he really tries to mold, and while I don't think it's always successful, he tries to mold movies and video games into one media. And I think the way he does it is very interesting. It's just not always successful.
creativity
Honestly,
has problems, right? Like you always have duds when doing creative work. It's just really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think even in those flaws, there is still genius there, and it's hard to not look at like the Metal Gear series and say, yeah, no, it's just beautiful. The way Kojima tells stories can be very convoluted, though. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I'm a huge fan of convoluted stories. Like, I love Kingdom Hearts. That's probably one of the most convoluted stories in video game history, because you still don't understand after 8 games in like what something in the first game was like. But I think and Kojima does something very similar where it's very convoluted. There's a lot of information, and sometimes not all of it's explained, well. But I would say there's still a lot of beauty to the stuff that he creates.
Oh yeah.
I love Metal Gear.
Yeah.
I didn't play Death Stranding, but I really like watching video game donkeys like repeated mockery videos of Death Stranding.
But I think it's an interesting experiment on what I'm not really sure what Kojima was trying to do, but I do think it's an interesting experiment, to be honest. I am curious as to what Death Stranding 2 will be like. I'm not gonna debate Kojima's genius, but one has to wonder what his plans are. If maybe his plans are so genius or incomprehensible to the mere mortal, such as I.
I think I feel like Death Stranding was more experimental with what he was trying to do. He was trying to see how the type of gameplay he wanted to do would work in his style. So I think Death Stranding 2 is going to be more refinement on that. I think it's going to be very similar, but it's going to be much more refined and hopefully more enjoyable to play overall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, okay, one last little thing on the anticipated game of next year. Do you think GTA 6 is actually going to come out? I don't know.
I do. I think
so.
it is. I think they've hyped it up too much at this point, where if they keep delaying it, it's just going... Actually, no. I think they could keep delaying it. It's GTA. I think Rockstar can get away with anything.
GTA Online,
I don't
man.
think it's...
Prince
I
money.
don't think it's going to be... I think it's going to come out next year. I think
It probably will.
It'll be
I
their
think
very own Half-Life 3, where it's just hyped and...
just endlessly, and then they stop talking about it.
No,
Half-Life
they'll
3
release it.
is coming out next year.
Yeah.
Now,
Half-Life 3 will be out next year.
Now, here's the question,
That's
though.
what I was going to say. That's what I was saying earlier.
If Valve announced Half-Life 3 or HLX, Half-Life X, we'll just call it. If Half-Life X was announced and was in the list with GTA 6, who do you think would win still?
GTA 6.
GTA 6 would win, but
Yeah,
they're wrong.
Just because Half-Life is such a phenomena at this point, I think GTA eclipses... I would say probably eclipses every single game in existence. Just based on how popular it is. I think it is the most popular video game of all time.
I disagree.
You have to think about the audience.
Really?
Well, I mean, for us, James, it would be the most popular.
I would make it Half-Life. I'd find a way to bribe all those judges. It's going to be Half-Life.
Okay,
And then there's gonna be riots.
So it's not. So you disagree because you will influence.
I will influence it. I will take the influencer part of what this all is and influence it. No, you're probably right though. Like 100%. GT. Even I've seen like with the way Valve does innovation, I think it would be really hard because I think if Half-Life 3 does come out, doubt it, but if it does, it would be so amazing. But you're like a lot of people still won't play it because people like the GTA style and it just everyone's played GTA at this point.
I think Half-Life, if we're looking at just PC games, Half-Life might stand a chance just against GTA 6 on PC specifically. But on an overall basis, GTA 6 is going to win out. Even if Half-Life released on consoles, GTA 6 would still win out.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So speaking of Game Awards, Steam Deck Gaming, sorry, ran a poll asking people if they wanted to run their own Game Awards show for like the Steam Deck, and 85.7% of people voted yes. So what are you guys' thoughts on this?
Neat. I like it.
I think it can be done, and it just needs to be very. I think you need to be careful with it, because I think you do have to stay on topic. You know, you do. I think if you're going to do a Steam Deck Game Awards show, you do have to really make sure the games that you're bringing up are compatible with the Steam Deck. That's, probably one of the biggest things. But if you're just going to do like the Game Awards and you're going to take those categories and put them into a Steam Deck awards show and it's just going to be Steam Deck games, I don't think that's really great either. Like, I think it would be really interesting to see a Game Awards show that kind of goes into some more Steam Deck specific awards or Steam Deck specific categories. And I think if he can do that and there's a solid production to it, that would be pretty good. I would say it'd be awesome to see.
Yeah.
So I have heard that OTK, the group, that a streamer group, they consulted Geoff Keighley for advice on how to run their own award show. I don't think it's for games. I think it's for like streamers and stuff. But like, yeah, if you could get Geoff Keighley's advice on how to run your own award show, it might be a success. Whoever wants to run their own award show, but you'd be hard pressed to know. Yeah.
I think it would do. It just depends on what you're expecting. If you're probably gonna need to lie in the middle. You can't probably make it too cheap, but you can't make it too expensive, because the Steam Deck community is not massive. It's big, but not massive. It's not Nintendo. It's not, it's growing. And so as long as you keep that in mind and do like 3 to 5 awards and just keep it to a half hour or something like that and not really do anything too flashy, but still really good production, I think it'd be successful. I think anything else is going to be oftentimes just a huge spend on money unless you have really good sponsors. I think
it could be successful if they do more, like if it is a little bit longer. I think the biggest thing was, will the amount of viewers that you would get justify the time spent on it? Like I think that would be my only thing, because you're right. This is a niche category, and you don't have the same audience that like General Game Awards do or Nintendo would do, or it's much more. There really isn't as many people that are as interested in this kind of thing. I do think it can break out if it's done correctly, though. I do think it could expand to just people who are curious, like, oh, there's a Steam Deck Game Awards? What's that about? And I think it could get people more interested in it. That could expand past like the Steam Deck space. I think
how I'd want to see it maybe is Valve actually being the curators of it and actually working with content creators. A lot of content creators. So that'd be a fun one too. It'd be fun to just see it done differently, I think, than a very flashy, expensive game of the year. Because let's be honest, like E3 game awards, the game of the year awards, whatever, is a little flashy, and if you read the chat, it's so negative all the time. It is really difficult because no one's going to agree on it, and no one can and a lot of people can't understand that, like, hey, you might love your game, but this is just a fun thing where people are going to say, hey, this is a good one. We like this. And sometimes it's maybe influenced with a little bit of money or power, but that's the part that's a little frustrating. But I think it'd just be fun to see a really fun community content creator Steam Deck Awards more than just like maybe an individual or one group. But that's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like a community run like award, that would be the standard. The big question now is, how can you organize such a thing? Because
Valve
award shows are
yeah, you'd have to have Valve.
Man, having Valve as a sponsor would be one hell of a sponsor. Let's be fair.
Not even sponsor, but
yeah.
just like coordinating it. It would be the best way because then they, But once again, they're not a big company, and so they'd have to decide on something like that, or have someone that's you usually have to have a director or some type of person that's going to be setting the whole thing up, and yeah. So SDG, if they want to do that, like that's awesome, and then include a bunch of people, that make it a lot easier, and you don't have to pay as many people.
Yeah. No, I can see the entire premise being a popular one. It really does depend on how it's, I guess, how it comes out, like what kind of effort that's put into it, and how, and if people are involved, who are the people involved, and how is it going to be portrayed.
Yes. So speaking of the Steam Deck, James, you're the MC. You should introduce the next topic.
Yeah, I'm the main character here.
I'm sorry. I really thought it was me this whole time. I'm so sorry.
No, you're MVP, but like, okay. Or MVC, main, most valuable
Character.
Yeah.
I've always known I'm an NPC, so
that would be so sad. Okay, so the Steam Autumn Sale is coming up, and I have a big list of stuff I want to be buying, and I'm actually for the whole sales next week, I'm hoping to get a video out for it because I usually like doing a sales video every once in a while, and so I'm curious though what you guys are. Is there anything you're going to be? No, you might own everything because you're getting it firsthand. But there's still some games that you might not be able to get, and just curious what you guys are going to be buying, if anything.
I think you're right. I think a lot of the big games that I would probably get are the ones I am getting to review. So I when I look at games I'm going to buy, I usually look at the smaller indie titles where I could request it, but I'd much rather support the indie. I think the game that's at the top of my list right now, I remember playing the demo, is this game called Nimrods. And I have a thing for roguelikes in my free time, and this is another roguelike where you're going around an area and you have a gun and you're shooting, and as you level up, you get new gun parts to put on your gun. So you're creating a gun, of like a unique gun as you're playing, and you keep going. If you die, you can actually find that gun again and use that custom made gun in another round. I'm pretty sure you can also equip it to like a little robot that goes around with you, and they'll be shooting that gun while you're building a new gun. I think it's a really interesting take. So that's on my list to check out. I don't really have a big list because I do get a lot of games, and I think I'm playing so many of them that I don't look at new games as much. But that one is right now at the top of my list.
It looks interesting. I'll have to check that out. Okay. Anyone else like going to be buying anything? Like me, I honestly, like half the stuff we talk about on here, I am gearing up to probably buy some of it for my backlog. I still have a bunch of backlog items from last year's sale around this time that I still haven't gotten to. That's why I haven't played as many games this year. It's because I'm getting through some of my backlog. But yeah, like what games? Anyone looking for any games?
I'm looking at my wish list.
Yeah.
And I don't really have much. I mean, Pizza Tower. I haven't played that, but I've heard so much good things about it. That's a game I want to give a good spin to. I always really appreciated the Wario Land games. So yeah, I'm probably gonna pick that up.
I do like. I like getting a good deal, but I also like paying full price for some, especially indie games, because then you get you give them more money because they need it. But the Animal Well one does look interesting, and I am tempted to. You guys have sold me on it. I might get it during the sale, but
no,
I might just.
Animal Well is amazing.
Oh, dude, it's so
Yeah.
Truly amazing.
Or I just get it on sale.
I'm gonna look into picking it up during the sale, Animal Well. Also, one more thing too. Do you guys think the Steam Deck is gonna go on sale, or the Steam Deck OLED particularly? Because I don't think the OLED's been on sale before, has it?
I believe didn't it go on sale? I thought it went on sale during the summer. No,
I think it has been on sale once.
I need to
I don't
look
know
into
if
it.
it'll go on sale for autumn, but it'll probably go on sale for winter.
Yeah, that's true. Also, we got another Steam Catgirl, Steam sale Catgirl illustration from Nemupan, the artist that does all of that. It seems like Valve was gearing towards making her a new main character, a new main Valve character.
I'm
Jeez.
here for it. I'm here
Valve.
for anything.
Gabe, it's time to make a new game. It's time to give her own game.
Oh my gosh, I don't have the outro. I'm gonna have to buy that.
You don't?
Yeah.
Wait.
Well,
I
you did
think
say
I
you haven't
have.
played any of the Game of the Year games or Game of the Year.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I've downloaded it somewhere. I just don't think it's on my Steam. I have it somewhere else, on something else.
Mm-hmm.
Your phone?
That's interesting.
Oh,
Who knows?
you know what I want? I want Commando's Origins. Like this is like a remake
Yeah.
of like the classic Commandos game. And I think on our first podcast we talked about the what is it, the indie Next Fest, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that was that I tried the demo, and man, that took me right back to when I was a kid playing Commandos. So I'd like to get that. It's not available yet. It says it's releasing in 2024, which, you know, we've only got a couple weeks left in that. But
There's not much time left.
yeah, but I'd love to get Commandos Origins because that's just super fun.
Yeah, I added that to my wish list too. No, there's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
I think the only other game that I'm looking at my list, the only other game that I'll probably pick up during the sale is Tactical Breach Wizards. I still haven't played it yet.
I haven't even heard of that.
I've heard from a couple people it's fantastic. It's one of the games that I was planning to get, and then I just, again, way too busy. But it's on the list for me.
Oh yeah. Interesting. Makes me think of Metal Gear a little.
Honestly, I'm going to use this as an
Yeah.
excuse to find me a really like a new game, because honestly, there's so many. Speaking of which, have you guys played a game called One Way Heroics?
Yeah.
No.
So basically, it's a traditional roguelike. It's a traditional roguelike, you know, top down, turn based, but it has a mechanic where the screen automatically scrolls to you're traveling to the right constantly to, you know, not be caught by a massive wall of death, basically. And that game goes on sale frequently for about $1. It's cheaper than Vampire Survivors, and it's been out for like almost 10 years at this point. Over 10 years. Like, it's so fun.
Yeah.
I like get this game all the time.
It reminds me of like Final Fantasy, old school Final Fantasy, and like Vampire Survivors, I guess. That's interesting. Like mashed together. Huh. I wouldn't be against trying that. Is it deck?
Yeah.
It's playable on the deck.
Yeah, it has controller support.
Yeah.
It's like an older Japanese game, so like that explains why it's so janky on the Steam Deck sometimes. I think it works pretty well on the deck personally, but you should give it a shot. It goes on sale for like $1. Usually goes on sale for like $1. And the DLC also goes on sale too sometimes.
I think I can spend $350 on this, but I'll wait.
Yeah.
I think I could swing it.
I think yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. There's so many good games coming out, or the games that have come out this year.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to prioritize, and that's why sometimes I'll wait until the sales to get certain games. I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to play this anytime soon, but I want to try to think I'm going to, and so I buy them. I'm hoping Silent Hill 2, but I doubt it because it came out like a month ago. But
I might have a small sale.
That's how Valve makes money.
Might only get very small sale. No.
I want to get Nine Souls. It's like a Metroidvania. I've heard it's so good. It's made by the guys that made it's by Red Candle Games. They made Detention and that one game that got banned. Do you guys remember what game that was? It got banned because of like China.
I don't remember which game that was.
It's ringing a bell, but I don't remember the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was Devotion. Yeah, that game got banned in China because there was an Easter egg featuring Xi Jinping, and it didn't just get banned in China; it got banned off of Steam entirely. Also, GOG was trying to bring it back, but due to quote unquote complaints from their gamers, they didn't bring it back. I don't want to get into this because I don't.
There's a lot of gamers complaining about it.
Dude, there's gamers complaining about everything, so I might believe it, but yeah.
Yeah. There's always something to complain about.
There's always something to complain about, but it's usually like minorities, so like voices in the sense that there's not a whole lot. So why?
I think it's just elevated on social media.
Yeah.
But in reality, they're very small.
Some things I'm glad companies cave to, and then there's other times where I'm like, this is a very small amount of people complaining about this. Why worry about it? But what I do want to worry about more though than this is like what a Steam Controller 2 is going to be. I am really curious to see what that Steam Controller 2 is going to look like, because I don't know. I have my Steam Controller over here somewhere. I like it, but I don't use it enough, and I just use my PS5 controller.
Yeah. See, I think I really like the Steam Deck gamepad. If they basically took that and made it into a controller, I would be very happy with it. I think the Hori controller that they release is like very close to it. So like I do like some of the dedicated buttons that they have. Like I was a fan of like having the dedicated quick access menu button, and there is 4 buttons on here that you can custom program to whatever you want, kind of like the 2 back buttons on each side of the Steam Deck controller or the Steam Deck gamepad. So I think the Hori controller is like halfway there. I think the biggest thing for me is the trackpads. I need those trackpads. I don't think I could go without it. The symmetrical joysticks. I've fallen in love with it. I hate using asymmetrical now. Like it just doesn't feel as comfortable. I think the biggest issue that Valve would have trying to just take the Steam Deck gamepad and turning it into a controller is just how big it's going to be. Like the Steam Deck is designed to have like a screen smack in the middle and your hands on 2 very different sides. Like I don't know how big a controller would be if they're going to turn like the Steam Deck's gamepad into a controller. But I think honestly it would have all the features I would like to see if they just turned the Steam Deck's, gamepad into a controller essentially.
So the Xbox Duke, massive controller, popular, people love it. Not everyone loves it because it's it's not bigger hands enjoy it. I liked it a lot. It wasn't like I had to have it kind of thing, but they could get away with doing a Steam controller based off of what the Steam Deck is.
I can see it. I think the biggest issue is the trackpads. I think just how they're going to fit the trackpads on there and make everything comfortable. And they did it with the Steam Deck, but I think it's going to be difficult. And what is it? I would say, like, you just sent over High Tech. You just sent over a proof of or a concept. Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like that.
It's not
design.
that easy.
That's a community made thing. That's not Valve.
No, it's not. It's honestly, it looks like it might be AI generated, but yeah, it's
no, it's a mock-up. It's a community mock-up. But I just I don't like how it's designed. I don't like the position of the trackpad specifically. I think I don't know what it is about it. I don't like it that much. I don't feel like it would be comfortable for me.
Yeah,
and
so
just ugly looking.
So what we do know about it, as for Sadly It's Bradley, is that the controller essentially will fit an entire Steam Deck control scheme onto a standard gamepad shape. So it's not going to be like a square controller like, what we've seen some Steam Deck controller mockups It is an interesting logistical nightmare to fit those trackpads on a standard controller because, you know what the Steam controller did? They just didn't have a right analog stick or a D-pad. And it's, I mean, oh, it looks like so basically it's an interesting concept.
Honestly, I think they could do it. I think it's going to be a bigger controller, and I'm here for it. It could be square. I don't care. They could even go with the new design of it, making it detachable, so Steam Deck 2 could have it detached. But I'm looking at this like, yeah, you can get rid of the speakers, but Linus Tech Tips might not be able to play it, but because he talked about how the Steam Deck just was a little too big for his hands, but I want a little bit bigger of a controller. Sometimes the smaller controllers just cramp my hands. So
my girlfriend has very small hands, and she plays the Steam Deck no problem. She loves it. And it's funny. I see in my comments all the time, and I have a few friends who have Steam Decks, and they're like, "Why do we need trackpads? We don't need trackpads." But I watch them actually use the controller, and they don't even realize that if they drop into desktop mode, they just naturally, without even thinking about it, switch to the trackpad. It's like, dude, if you're adapting a PC for gamepad use, you really need at least one trackpad. And having two enables so many interesting things that I don't think studios are taking advantage of yet. I'd really like to see Valve push the industry forward with Half-Life 3 having specific things that can be done with both trackpads on a Steam controller too.
I'm here for it. Half-Life,
I would love to see that.
I don't think they're gonna do anything exclusive just to Half-Life 3. I would love to see them really dive into Steam Input. I think Steam Input works perfectly with the Steam Deck's gamepad and just the way you can utilize virtual menus just using the trackpads. I think Steam Input is probably one of the most revolutionary advances in gaming that I've seen recently. Just the sheer amount that you can do with it, turning games that have no controller support into gamepad supported games is insane. And I think I would like to see them use the Steam Deck, a Steam controller, and really dive deep into Steam Input and show what you can actually do with that controller and how deep you can really customize it. Because you can go really deep into customizing with Steam Input. You can, with all the menus that you can nest and all the commands you can add, sub commands and all this stuff. So if you hit a button, it actually will, it can use two different commands. You can have one where it simulates the A button, and then right afterwards it'll simulate the D button. And you can set it all to go with one button on the controller. I think it's revolutionary what they've done, and I would really love to see them push that with a Steam controller too, and really intertwine it with Steam Input. And if they did that with Half-Life 3, I think that it would really show off what that controller is capable of.
Yeah, I think it would be cool if, to kind of take your idea and flip it on its head, Noah, if they did something that was you could do very well to the with the Steam controller, that then you could then if you're using a mouse and keyboard or a different controller, you could then set it up in Steam Input, right? Because it's Valve has always said, and I've heard Gabe Newell say this many times, he's envious of Nintendo because they make the hardware and the software. So they make the software specifically for that hardware. And it's and vice versa too. So it's if they have the opportunity to release a game that is custom tailored for a piece of hardware, then I would think that they should jump on that, right? I feel like it's kind of a wasted opportunity for them to not be releasing Half-Life 3 for the Steam Deck, right?
I agree. I think they won't make it exclusive to the Steam Deck too, but I think a good lineup would be, because with Half-Life Alyx, right? We've talked about a Gardiner. One of the best games probably ever.
Yes.
It's just, if you've ever played it on VR, it is just next level. You've never played a game like this. if they release something, and we already have proof of concept, like they did a Portal game, a short Portal game on the Steam Deck. It did really well. Like it was free. It was great. It's one I usually recommend people to get into the Steam Deck and get used to the controls and how things work, even with the trackpads. But I think a Half-Life 3 released that supports Steam Deck 2 and is heavily optimized to work great with the Steam Deck 2's inputs and everything would be an amazing launch. And it's not something that they've done stuff like that before. They launched their last VR headset with Half-Life Alyx. So it's not far-fetched to say that they could do something like that, or like Half-Life X, like HLX, right? They could do something that's not quite Half-Life 3, but they definitely could release the two side by side. But instead of VR, where it's really hard to like backfill that to make it playable on a non-VR setup, you could still play Half-Life 3 if they because like the inputs on the Steam Deck, yeah, they could. It wouldn't be as fun, but I don't think they should limit themselves. They should make it so that it's playable for mouse and keyboard and everything else. But I think it'd be really fun to see it be like top dog on the Steam Deck 2 and like a flagship title.
I think it would absolutely help sales for the Steam Deck 2 for sure, especially for like, I think obviously I think when they do a Steam Deck 2, I don't think there's any question that all of us are going to be getting it no matter what they bundle it with. But I think it would be a big boost for people that are on the fence about it right now or thinking about possibly going to like the Ally X or the Legion Go or, a different Windows handheld. I think it would give them a leg up. I really do think a lot of the features that the Steam client has that are intertwined with the Steam Deck are not being highlighted as much as they should. Like, I really do think it keeps it a step above, like with how intertwined like Steam Input is, how even just the game recording feature and how easy it is to use on the Steam Deck and how, well optimized it is. I mean, it's just, I wish Valve pushed showing those off a little bit more and how they worked on the Steam Deck. I think it would sell a lot of people just based on what you can do with the Steam client.
Yeah, I think Windows, unless they actually step up the game, which I don't believe in them doing like a handheld game mode for Windows. I think Valve is in a very good market, and I think they're gonna the more that they can make themselves more attractive, we'll get more and more games that are DRM and also anti-cheat protected over onto Linux, which is a big win, right? Like it's Windows is about to lose the gaming battle really they're really close to doing it, and I don't feel like they're doing anything except for adding new AI icons to my Windows desktop. I'm kind of been done with Windows for a little bit, and the reason I bring this all up is that, like you said, Noah, like the Ally X and everything is great, but when Windows on it is like a big downgrade, even though they have good software. Like, I think the Armory is decent. I still threw on a SteamOS oriented distro on it. I can't remember what it's called. And
Bazite.
I did Bazite, yeah. And I like it quite a bit more. Even though I can't play all the games I want on it, I like it more. It's just a better experience.
No, and I think Valve is in a very good position right now. I agree. I've made this claim before. It's very unpopular. I think of all the DRMs that exist on like for video games, I think Valve is the only one that can actually justify taking 30%. I think a lot of people have gotten upset with me about that, but I feel like they're really the only ones who can justify with all the work that they're doing both in the client and outside the client with making Linux a viable operating system to play games on. Yeah. Like, I think they are the only company that could say that they want to take 30% and actually justify that 30% based on all the work they're doing. The only change I would say is that right now I think they're reducing that percentage for like games that reach a certain sales point, and really only AAA games reach that sales point. where they'll reduce it down to like either 20 or 25% that they take. I would rather them turn it on its head and
it
do
needs to
that
be
for
opposite.
indies, and like that the indies get like 20 to 25%, and then maybe if they sell more, it gets to 30%.
This is where
I think that's what they should do.
this is where Epic just destroys them. Their pricing model
Yeah.
and their friendliness to indies, like both are friendly to indies, and I don't like it that Epic doesn't get enough call out for this. I'm not saying I like the Unreal Engine, so I'm a little bit of a. If Valve would get their crap together and do Source 2 properly, I'd use that. But they're very kind to indies, both in grants and also just with their percentages up to like what, 1 million you get to keep. At like 5% or something like that, or is it just 1 million you get to keep? I can't remember, but it's.
I think their split is 88-12 overall though.
88-12 if it's on their marketplace. No, it's actually lower, I think.
No, not I'm talking about marketplace. With Unreal Engine, they're extremely kind.
Yes, and so it's I would like to see Steam do that. I think they could reduce theirs to 15% for indies, and then once you hit 1 million, maybe bump it up to like 20. They're ungodly amounts of money they set on.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be more achievable or more likely that Valve would do a blanket like reducing down to 20% for everybody, and then as it gets to a specific number, it goes up to 30. I think that is more likely than doing it specifically for indies getting 15%.
I'm saying studio. I'm just saying
that.
Well, I'm just saying studios that make that money on Steam. Anyone, I would say anyone that makes up to 1 million. I only said indies because indies don't oftentimes break 1 million.
Yeah.
But I meant just more like just like do it how Epic does it.
No, and I do agree with that. I agree when they hit a certain benchmark, that's when it goes up a little bit more. Yeah. And I do agree that the benchmark should be upwards of like 1 million, maybe 1 million net profit, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I think of all the DRMs that exist, there is no client that is so feature rich like Steam is. Like there none can compare. Like I don't know any client that has mods baked into it or has a whole guide section where the community can continuously write guides. And then you have, those features like Steam Input, which again, I think is extremely revolutionary. And that's all free to use. And there are all those other little features that developers can do, like, Steam emoticons, trading cards, other ways to engage with the community that they give, and it's just all tools that they can use if they choose to.
Yeah, but they make money off even if they were making 15%, they'd still be making a lot. It made sense
100%.
20 years ago because, once again, computing and all that costs a lot, but nowadays it's reduced a lot, and I think they could be a little bit more generous.
And I agree with that entirely. Like I said, I do think that they could reduce it. I just don't think it's likely.
No.
And I think that anyone pushing for them to reduce it should be pushing for the entire industry to reduce it. Like get into Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, get everyone to reduce it because it's the same thing. But
I gotta jump in here because I think Noah, you called it out earlier. They do stuff inside Steam, but they also do stuff outside of Steam with their war chest, right? Like Valve is investing lots of money. We don't have actual numbers, but they're investing lots of money into developing the Linux ecosystem, into developing libraries that benefit not just Valve, but the entire Linux world, and even the Unix world. I mean, it benefits Mac OS and a bunch, and FreeBSD and all these other Unix-like operating systems. And it's like they are doing this because they see the benefit of open source. So from my perspective, I think that it's justified. Like I publish my game on Steam, 30%. I'm okay with that. Like I don't really. I find that the debate about like the revenue split is a little misleading. It's like I worry that it's mostly like these big industry players who are like saying, "Oh, geez, it's really unfair that the most dominant platform takes 30%, guys."
It usually is.
And then once Valve is like, "Okay, we'll reduce it down to 15 or whatever," then Epic's going to go, "Yeah, okay, now we're starting to win, so we're going to raise it to 20%." Like, that's just how these players work, in my point of view. I just don't trust them.
Yeah, that is my concern with Epic, but at least they're doing that. They could invest in their platforms better. Let's just say I definitely think I would like
Epic's client is a little half-baked.
I would like to consult with them and help them develop their platform out a little bit better. But Steam, it's hard because the only reason I do this is because I am brain broken and I'm on Reddit. And I read the indie Reddit a lot, and a lot of indie developers tend to struggle. They're like, "Well, I made like 100,000, but after everything and their take home, like, yeah, that sucks." I think that Valve could be a little bit more generous to indies. I definitely don't think they need. I definitely don't think they need to decrease it for AAA. I think AAA waste their money. They kind of deserve to maybe even have it increased, is in my opinion. And especially with them jumping all the time, there's just no way. But you do realize, like, almost guaranteed the AAA publishers out there probably have special deals with Valve. So once you make a certain amount of money, you almost always have a deal.
It's possible, but I think if Valve pushes it too much, like increasing the percentage, I think AAA publishers are going to move away. I really do. I mean,
I'm being
look
salty.
at Ubisoft. They tried. Like, I think if Valve made it harder for them, I think they would keep on trying that. Like, I think it would just not justify it, unfortunately.
I'm being bombastic. I'm not being serious that they increase it.
So I haven't. So part of me thinks that the reason why they aren't increasing it is because of that. Because companies as big as like Capcom, they could totally like jump over to like Epic or whatever. It doesn't guarantee their success. No. Like, let's look at like if companies as big as Ubisoft and EA couldn't successfully make the jump, or at least try to make their own platform successful, then there's probably little chance that any other company could easily do so. Unless you have a game like Fortnite.
Strategies, though.
Unless you have a game like Fortnite or Minecraft, no, I don't think it's going to happen.
That's the point. Ubisoft jumped, and it's like, okay, you have to have a good plan. You got to have good games. EA, all those launchers, they all tried to do stuff like that, and they jumped, and it honestly is just it's hurt them a lot. Like, it's kind of funny that they're crawling their way back, but they've lost so much in sales.
There's a quote that I remember reading from I'm pretty sure it was Tim Sweeney, and he said that the 12% revenue split that they take is not sustainable to run the Epic Game Store.
Interesting. You're probably right.
I have looked for that quote. I've looked for that quote and I cannot find it. I feel like he said it on Twitter, and I think he probably deleted it because, like, I can't find it anywhere, but I remember distinctly reading that from Tim Sweeney.
Interesting.
And it's like, dude, and it's like, why are they taking 12% if they can't run the store with 12%?
I definitely don't think Steam needs to go that low. I'm just I want it to be more competitive for indies, and that's about it.
I mean, it would be nice if I had an additional, 10, 15% in my pocket, but at the same time, the platforms that we use cost money to run.
Oh, yeah.
Like, bandwidth isn't free, and when you have games that are hundreds of gigabytes that you can install and uninstall as many times as you want, you're using tons and tons of gigabyte of bandwidth for free. And Valve doesn't charge the developer for that, and they don't charge you for that. So it's like that 30% is actually going towards things that make a difference and make your experience better as a gamer and as a developer too.
Gardiner, I think I found that quote.
You did?
Yeah,
I think so. Check the DMs.
Okay.
I will quickly say that, like, my whole rant about the 30% being justified is not me saying that they shouldn't go lower. It's just that if everyone's going to be at 30%, I think Valve is the only one that can make a case for it.
Oh, agreed. Like, Epic doesn't do enough. Well, okay, their engine is great. Their engine is amazing, in my opinion.
Yeah, ignoring their engine, just looking at the DRM.
But
just
the store itself is not great. It's getting better, but they just launched a new store and doesn't even have like the fab.com for, so if you buy models or anything like that, 3D models and all that stuff for game development, they launched a new store and it doesn't even have what they replaced it with, wish list. You can't even wish list, which it's not hard to add in, guys. It's not hard.
Yeah,
No.
I don't have a lot of faith in that team on Epic's side, but the getting back to the bandwidth thing though, I wanted to bring this up. Baldur's Gate 3 has got to be so expensive for Valve. That and Call of Duties, right? The Call of Duties have got to be like the most expensive thing. So maybe they need to charge more for that, for those types of games.
Just to put that in perspective, we have the audio version of this show on like that I'm distributing on my server, right? And we've distributed over 1 terabyte of episode downloads.
Jesus.
And we've only had like 300 downloads over there. And it's like, these episodes are like 40 megabytes a piece, but that really, really adds up like very quickly. And that's 40 megabytes per episode, right? It's like, people don't understand the absolutely massive scale that Steam operates at. And even Epic and the other storefronts, they all do it. You wonder why PSN's downloads are so slow. It's like, you wonder why. It's because bandwidth is so expensive and you pay for the premium when you have fast servers that are delivering content really quickly.
I wonder if they really do save money by going to download only, like on, say, PlayStation, over shipping a disc where they just have to ship the disc. But they do have patches, so that's...
There was a study that was done back in 2015 or 2016. I don't remember who did it, but we can look this up. But there was a study done that says that downloading games, like digital distribution of games, is as bad for the environment as physical distribution, if not worse. And that was in 2013. Like,
yeah, that can be offset though.
It can, but
and
at
it's
the
probably
same time,
being offset more nowadays. But I hear you on that.
Yeah, it could be offset more now, but it could also be more expensive in other ways. Like, you know, if you integrate AI into your operation, suddenly things are going to be a lot more expensive and worse for the environment. So it's like, I don't know, dude. It's, you know, people give lots of reasons for all their different, for all the different things that they're complaining about. It's like, they don't understand how things actually work a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, yeah, like the cost of, I couldn't imagine like $1, let's say Half-Life alone, them selling it for $1, let's say Half-Life 2, like they've got to be losing money over a few years of people just download it a few times. But then again, they have to have some pretty amazing deals and servers and stuff like that with all this. So it's that's
sure
the hard part.
Some Costco buy in bulk deals.
Well, there's deals, there's stuff that they can work with. The problem ultimately comes down to, I don't know if an underdog game store could come out actually succeed with this type of stuff. It's just really hard. Like you said, Gardner, like being able to, even if I did it on AWS, like the cost would be so high to try to do my own store, even taking 30%. But yeah, we could beat this topic up all day because this is fun and we're gonna hit it a lot. But Blockbuster game, I don't know how much more time we have left, but Blockbuster game bubble has burst is a very interesting topic I'd love to get to. It is definitely happening. It's been happening for a little bit. I think it's been happening since Blizzard is a great indicator, I think, of like how bad games have been going downtrending for AAA. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
I completely agree. I mean, if it hasn't burst yet, it's about to, right? Like, I mean, we have all the hallmarks of like a what's the word? Like a fat cat, right? It's like the industry is just full of tycoons that are about to like lose their shirts. You know what I'm saying?
They're cash cowing this thing, but with cash cows, becomes a point where it has to dip off and they don't have anything after it dips off. And so it's really bizarre, the trends that they chase and everything. And there's already a tech bubble about to pop. Like our tech bubble period is about to pop, which is scary, but the game industry on top of that, even like they have an element of tech. They also on top of that have really, really bad leadership going on with most AAAs. And so there's also going to be like a leadership bubble pop, I think is what the problem is. And so.
Yeah. I mean, most of the leadership in the games industry and the tech industry treat the industry as if it's a casino. And they make these massive bets about like what's going to be, what's going to make them the most money. And a lot of them rely on live services, you know, like Concord was a huge investment of time and money. And then they pulled it from the market because it did so poorly. And it's like, they just, it's just huge gambles, because when they have gambled in the past and it's paid off. And it's like, dude, let's be responsible for once in our lives.
Gamble responsibly?
No, stop gambling.
So, gamble. You can. It's called you take out $100 and that's what you're spending. That's actually a thing, but it does sound silly. With the game and like they diversify is what they do. But the problem is that they used to diversify and do more creative projects a little bit more. I feel like we had a whole era for that. Lately, it's been they're chasing. Oh, look how much Fortnite's making. Look at all these live action or live service. They're chasing too much. They're not diversifying. They're putting all their money down on one or two things, and they're not pulling out just hundreds, every once in a while for different projects. They're just taking it all out and putting it on one, and that's why you're seeing a huge problem with games being good, I think, these days.
Yeah, well, it's like the movie industry is in a similar state, right? Where it's like they're making these huge tentpole movies and not doing any of the other smaller films that would support those tentpole movies, and then those tentpole movies don't perform well, and so what do they do after that? Well, now they're out like $1 billion, and it's not doing well, so they're just kind of screwed, and the studio closes or whatever, and it used like. Do you remember like EA's good old days? I'm sure, James, you remember in the late 2000s, early 2010s when EA was actually doing the hard work and they were doing a decent job of it. Yeah. They were still EA, but like they put money into smaller projects that did decently, and those are the kind of things that we need, like
Dead Space.
Mirror's Edge and Dead Space.
Dead Space is a big one, and then they became my enemy after that.
No,
because Dead Space 3, they influenced it too much, and then they killed the franchise.
Yep. Yeah.
Dead Space was one of my favorite horror games at the time too. It was a shame.
Yeah.
That's still my favorite.
EA also didn't they publish Mass Effect?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
So it's like they had.
It wasn't a self-published from BioWare.
It wasn't.
Right.
No, BioWare was just up and coming, right? Or not? They were up and coming, obviously, but like.
They had like KOTOR under their belt and stuff, but they were still a smaller studio because like Star Wars was a pretty open license. Like pretty much anyone could get a Star Wars license if you were in the industry, True. It's much more controlled now. Yeah, but I mean that's kind of the problem too. It's like it's all centralized and like the IP is owned by like one of 8 companies, and it's like or one of 5 companies or whatever it is now, and so all of this is just. It's all just colluding into a burst of the bubble, as far as I can tell.
No, I feel like this was bound to happen. I think COVID kind of accelerated it to some degree as well, with a lot of companies hiring a bunch of people where outside of COVID they wouldn't have been able to afford it. It's something that we've been seeing in like the journalist space as well. Been watching a lot of big outlets have like these really massive layoffs. Like I know GameSpot had one, Dexerto had one, the Gamers Group had multiple. I'm trying to think if there are any others that come to my mind. I think it's just and then there was like Kotaku had one, and then Game Informer shut down entirely. Like I think it's just the entire industry went too hard during COVID and took on a lot, and I think that accelerated this, and we're seeing it pop in real time just with so many companies laying off some amazing writers. Like I know in at least in the journalist space, I know like at least like 50 to 60 writers that I would love to work with, and they just can't find work. I mean, because no company is able to hire. And
I think,
and then there's, at least for the journalist space, there are external factors as well, making it much harder, like Google, which is why, like, when you said that we pop up, I was like actually kind of surprised, because Google has been very unhelpful for a lot of sites, especially the smaller ones.
Google's on its downward trend there. It's another one of my enemies, EA and Google. And EA, if you want to give me a game, then just I love you guys, but no, I'm just
You saved yourself there.
I know, I saved myself. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure Gardiner's not going to edit these all out and then like post them. No, I'm just kidding. So
The entire episode is just going to be you simping for EA. That's the entire episode. So
You know
you know
what?
2 hours just replaying it.
at this point in my life, it's what it is. As long as I get to enjoy Half-Life later on.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting. And I think, honestly, I really want gamers to understand how some of their things affect the industry too, because it really sucks to lose your job. It really sucks to be laid off. It really, really sucks hard until you've gone
Especially
through something
if you're
like that.
passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
Too.
And it's a really hard industry already.
Devastating.
To kind of break into, and it's devastating. And it's also one that's very manipulated, because we are so passionate about it. Companies understand that they can pay less oftentimes. They can really manipulate.
Yeah.
And so who's going to hurt the most from the AAA title or the AAA game industry bursting? It's going to be, unfortunately, the developers, the journalists, everyone who needs to rely on us for a daily job is going to hurt the most. And the top dogs are just going to retire with probably some type of bonus just to get them out.
Golden parachute.
That's what's happening to like Blizzard, right?
Yeah.
The amount of money that EA CEO makes is insane. And I can't understand it.
So he might not be EA CEO for long. If we talked about this last episode, how Disney of all companies was looking to have him replace Bob Iger.
That's right. I remember that.
Ugh.
Which that's scary to think about too. But maybe that CEO would be better geared towards a company like Disney versus a video game publisher, because they are two different beasts. So I'm not going to say that I dislike the idea immediately, because what if some of the ideas that he has would be better geared towards a media company like Disney versus a video game publisher?
Loot boxes for kids when they're watching Disney. I agree. I agree with your statement and what you're proposing.
Okay, well, I don't know. I don't know if he could get away with that. But
No, but that's the fun. I'm gonna joke, so don't mind me.
I got you. Though it'd be hilarious to see. I'd love to see like Mickey's Playhouse, and just like right smack in the middle, a pop up comes up and it's for loot boxes for kids.
Yeah,
they're so close to doing stuff like that already. With my kids.
AR glasses. You go to Disney with AR glasses on, and you have to submit your glasses to their network, and they can put whatever they want on your screen. Oh, dude, no.
So got me sold, but now ads, no.
Yeah, I am concerned about the post game industry, post AAA burst, because honestly, I don't think we've ever seen a game industry without the AAA scene, aside from like, I don't know, the dark ages after Atari burst. Because
it's been up, it's flowed a little bit, but I think this is going to be unfortunately, most likely the biggest one, and without a decent bailout for the underdogs, it's going to be. I really hope people are saving up for this one, because it's going to suck.
Like
Renaissance will come from it, though.
Yeah, like I think it's easier for us to say that like the indie developers shall inherit the earth, or I guess in this case, games industry, but will they though? Like, let's think, like, what would happen if like EA went away all of a sudden? What would happen to all the people that just buy PlayStations and Xboxes for FIFA or for Madden? would they actually buy other games, or would they just stop playing video games altogether?
No, they
That's
keep
one thing
playing
we
the
have to
same
consider.
game. That's already what they do already. Like every time they get a new FIFA game, it's the same thing.
It's true.
Sorry,
True.
I'm brutal truth here. But no, someone's going to pick up the license.
It's basically Call of Duty, just same thing over and over.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think the only way to save this without anything bursting would be to really change up, especially pricing, like how much it costs to develop games. They need to change that up immediately. They need to stop taking in so much money and giving it to themselves, and instead trickle it down a little bit more to the people making the games, and maybe making it so games don't cost upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, I know that's harder to do nowadays, but there's got to be ways that they could do that, even if it's just downscaling the quality of the game. Instead of trying to make like photorealistic graphics, they do something more unique, like what Nintendo does. Nintendo doesn't rely on the biggest, the most realistic graphics. I mean, look at Breath of the Wild. Yeah, Breath of the Wild is an incredible game and is regarded as like one of the best Zelda games that have ever been made. I think that if these AAA developers were able to do something along those lines where they could, downscale a little bit to cut costs, I think they could really, really make it so that this bubble doesn't completely burst.
Yeah, I think they put too much into marketing. I think if they were smarter with a marketing budget and relied on content creators a little bit more, even given that, like, there's a lot of marketing that needs to change, and they tend to blow a lot on marketing. And then they also tend to disproportionately, executives have just way too much in the sense of like bonuses and all that. Something like that couldn't get affected unless there was regulation. Just people don't do that type of thing unless there's regulated to do it.
Regulation or community action. Yeah,
community action's such a hard one because I don't feel like they've listened to us yet. And even if the bubble bursts, they'll just walk away, and there'll be new AAAs that come up, and they'll make the same mistakes. I feel like. I
said community. I meant like union action.
Oh, sorry. Unions are becoming a thing. And they really, like, if there's one industry that needs it now, it's gaming.
Yeah,
100%. And hopefully the trend will continue, and there will be more unions popping up to support the different developers in the industry, because they 100% they need it. They're being taken advantage of, and it's the same with journalists. I mean, I'm really glad that IGN has their own union, like the writers union within IGN.
I did not know that. That's awesome.
I've heard like good and bad things. I've heard for the most part good, but I think in the beginning there was some pushback. Even though IGN agreed to the union, there was some pushback about it, and I believe they fired people which circumvented the union, which people were upset about.
Did they get fined? Like, that union busting is a thing, but there's
I'm not 100% sure. This was early on. I think it was last year. This was early on when the union was first created. I haven't heard anything else negative about it yet, so I think it's solid now. But I do think unions would really be helpful in the industry to protect the actual developers making the game, so they're not making scraps. And same with writers, so they're not making scraps.
Well, it's also hard. Think about it this way too. It's really hard to be creative if you don't know if you're going to have a job after that project. You're working on a project, you're working on it. Stress alone can really be a deterrent, or it could help sometimes increase creativity. But at the end of the day, they really, I just don't know. I do my own game development for my own indie stuff, but like, I could never work for a AAA title because I just could not I could not work for a company that's going to probably lay me off once the project's done.
No, I think the volatility needs to cool down, and I think the restructuring and downscaling would help decrease the volatility. I really like Nintendo has their issues, but I really like how they approach game development, and I think that more AAA companies should approach it similarly. And I think that would be. I think that would help a lot too, because I don't see Nintendo going anywhere, especially now with how successful the Switch was. I know they were in trouble after the Wii U, but even in the Wii U era, their games were top notch.
Yeah.
Like they know how to create some of the best games in the industry, and I think their approach really helps with that. They treat their employees, their developers really well, and they focus on creativity over trying to push boundaries. And it just leads them to success after success. Like, I don't think Breath of the Wild did anything new that I haven't seen other games do, but they combine different gameplay elements so well that it feels new. And and the way that they interact with each other is very, very unique.
But can you play it on Steam Deck without getting sued?
Okay, well, look. Well,
you can only expect so
but-
much from a
yeah. But my point is that way of developing games, I think, should be more widely adopted by other AAA publishers.
Yeah.
I think that would lead them to much more success. I think it would turn down the cost of developing games and increase the profits because it would be more unique where more people will invest into it.
So topics wise, we have a bunch more topics. Do we want to hit those or do we want to skip some? Because I know
We can skip
Yeah,
a few of them.
yeah, we can skip a few of them. Do you guys want to talk about Microsoft's Windows 365 link, or well, I guess we'll gloss over a little bit.
I have
It's a stupid-
clue what it is.
I don't know.
It's a stupid thin client that connects to a Windows instance that's in the cloud, and you have to, on top of paying like $350 for the box, you also have to pay a monthly fee for Windows 365. It's stupid. No one buy it. I'm not gonna buy it. I don't think anyone here is gonna buy it. If you want a computer that's that thin, probably just get a M4 Mac Mini.
Yeah. It's a dumb
An
thing.
M4 Mac Mini for $350 though?
Okay, not for $350.
No,
That's
but
probably not gonna be for
there's no
years.
there's no monthly payment, so like that's worth a lot. Who wants to pay monthly payment?
Yeah, but how much is the monthly payment? Like, how much would you be paying for like an M4 Mac Mini that would add up to, like, was it Windows 365 for how long?
Because it depends on what you're doing with it too. But there's
I'm
no way
looking
that
right
a thin
now.
client's going to be better than a Mac Mini.
It's $9.99 a year. I mean, it's $99.99 a year. Sorry, forgot.
So $100 for a year, $349 for the unit.
Yeah.
So probably like 3 years before you make
before it hit the. I don't like the idea of I don't like hostage stuff with my hardware. I have a printer over there that I am being. HP's just essentially breaking my freaking kneecaps on. Even though it's not expensive, it's annoying because I'm like, I'll forget about the subscription, want to print something. I'm like, oh crap, I switched credit cards or something like that. Like,
oops.
Yeah, I hate it.
That's assuming that you can even use Windows 365 at all times and in all places.
Yeah,
Like, no.
it
No
could have
thanks.
a time and place, but it's definitely I don't know. It's for business. It has to be for business, and that's it.
See, there's also Sony wanted to acquire Kadokawa Corporation, who most gamers know them as the parent company that owns like majority of FromSoftware, but they're also known for their light novels, visual novels, manga, anime, basically all of that stuff. And there's a lot of concerns that, Sony would own FromSoftware and force FromSoftware to publish games exclusively for PlayStation. That would suck.
I mean,
But at the
That's
same
not really my main concern with Kadokawa. Like, yeah, they would own FromSoft and they make some of the biggest games now, like with the whole Souls-like genre. But there are so many people that don't care about the Souls-like genre, and I'm not one that cares about it. I'm not really concerned with them owning FromSoftware, especially with Xbox basically buying up some of the biggest companies on top of that. I feel like if they just bought FromSoftware, it would be fair game with what Xbox is doing. I would say the monopolization of the anime industry is much bigger.
I agree.
And that's something I would like to avoid.
You want to talk about the fastest way to burst the bubble is monopolies.
Yeah,
So-
it would not be good.
So there's been a plot twist recently suggesting that Kadokawa actually approached Sony because they wanted to block a hostile takeover from Kakao Corporation, a Korean mega conglomerate that does a lot of things, but they're also mostly known for like their webtoons, which are like Korean vertical comic strips, and also K-pop, of course.
See, I would actually rather Kakao take it over, just based on my limited knowledge of all of this. I think I would feel better about Kakao taking it over Sony. Like, yeah,
Interesting.
Sony would. Sony is more integrated into that industry, but I think that's actually more scary because it would be more of a monopolization since Sony's already in the industry, whereas Kakao, it doesn't sound like they would be monopolizing on really any of it. Like, it doesn't, from what you said, it doesn't sound like they do much with video games or with anime. So it sounds like it would still be pretty separate from, like, you know, a bigger company that's already doing it holding them.
And in terms of video games, Kadokawa also owns Spike Chunsoft. They're best known for making Danganronpa. They've also developed the first few Dragon Quest games alongside Enix back in the day, and also very recently Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. So there's a lot. So there's a lot Sony gains if they were to buy Kadokawa. Of course, yes, FromSoftware, Spike Chunsoft, another means of distributing anime because I think they own Crunchyroll, which is like the biggest service, and
Crunchyroll is already a monopoly now.
In the West, yes.
Yeah, I guess in the West, but you know, that's the only way I can. That's the only lens I can view it from. Bloodborne is already Sony exclusive too, so them going to Sony makes some sense. With Sony they've done some bad decisions in the past year, so I'm a little worried about Sony. If it would have been like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe a couple more years ago, like I would be saying Sony, but it's a hard one.
See, I think unfortunately when it comes to like the video game sections of it, I can't really say, you know, that Sony shouldn't be doing this because Xbox has been doing it themselves. I mean, they bought Bethesda and Activision. It's really hard to look at that and say, okay, well then Sony shouldn't do this because, you know, Xbox has done it to a much bigger degree.
Xbox doesn't do exclusives as much though. Sony's a big
No,
exclusive.
that's the only other thing. PlayStation would do exclusives. But, you know, that was one of the biggest concerns with Xbox taking over Activision that Sony kept trying to raise, is that some of the biggest series like Call of Duty would become Xbox exclusives. And, you know, I think that would been I think Xbox would have done that if, you know, if Sony didn't challenge them. I think they would have pushed for more like exclusives. At least in the beginning,
I think they're going to do
done that.
I think they're going to do more exclusives, but the problem is it's not very lucrative. If the more platforms you can be on, it's typically, well, what's your drive? What's your future thing? With Microsoft and Xbox, like I'm thinking they want to be on more platforms than possible. That's why they're doing their whole Game Pass thing. We'll see how that turns out, obviously, but it's not like Xbox is doing great right now, the Xbox system itself.
No, but they haven't been for a while. When it comes to the console race, PlayStation has been beating them ever since the 360 era. So I don't think Xbox is under the illusion that they can bring their hardware or like their console scene back. I think that's why they're so open to doing, you know, putting their games on every single console so that they can recoup the cost as much as possible. Yeah. I don't see Sony doing that in any way whatsoever, regardless, because their consoles are still doing so well. Like, and then we have like, even with like a lot of Xbox games, you know, I don't see much invasive parts of it, like what Sony's trying to do with like games that are coming to PC with like the PlayStation overlay and it not being supported on Linux, for instance.
Yeah.
but in the end, I don't care that FromSoftware or even Spike Chunsoft would go to Sony. I think it's all fair game at this point, especially between the two companies. I think the biggest thing is the anime industry.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think FromSoftware would make sense to go to, maybe if they even broke it off and sold parts of it to both. That could always be a thing that could happen depending on who wants what. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping FromSoftware just stays FromSoftware. But
yeah,
are they publicly traded?
Independent.
No, they're owned by Kadokawa. Wait, never mind. So yeah, they are publicly traded. They're
majority owned by Kadokawa. Sony already owns a part of FromSoft, and I think Tencent owns the rest of it.
Tencent.
Kadokawa owns like 80% of it.
Yeah, so because Sony owns some of it, there's even more drive that they'll probably end up with it. Honestly, they'll have a lot of say because they have ownership with that type of thing. So as far as other topics, I mean, I'm down for just going to the last one if you guys are.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so what is this all about, James? This is your topic.
I threw this in here because it's fascinating. Now, it's a little deceiving a little bit. So it's this article from tweaktown.com. Valve paves the way for a Steam Deck 2 gaming handheld with GeForce RTX graphics. Oh, wow. So are they going to make is NVIDIA actually making a play for Steam Deck 2? No, it's not. It's really fun to read. Like, you read the thing. It's obviously a little bit of a gotcha. What it is, though, is still really good for SteamOS, right? And I'm sure, Noah, you probably know a bunch about this. And so
I know a little bit here and there.
More a little here and there. That
a little bit here, a little bit there.
So Valve's latest Proton experimental update for SteamOS and Linux adds a DLSS 3 frame generation support. So with this, and the reason why this is brought up in the Steam Deck 2 kind of stuff is like, what's their play? Proton has added ARM support. No, ARM. ARM support.
ARM emulation.
Yeah. And I always get ARM and something else mixed up. I thought I mixed it up. And now they're adding more NVIDIA support for it, which is one of the like Linux and NVIDIA just don't mix well anymore. They used to like do a little better, and then
it's getting better now, but it's still quite like oil and water.
Yeah.
Now.
So this is good. This is good though. This is good progress. We want to have as much like on the Linux community, because I want to be more and more Linux these days, or Mac OS, both, whatever. Proton works for Mac too, so I'm always down. I love seeing stuff like this get added though, and I think the frame generation is important for mobile and for handheld. So I'm really loving to see this direction. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on this direction and what it could mean.
I think the title is a bit weaselly, but it makes sense.
I hate the title.
I had to add it in because it's funny.
The title is awful.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault.
No, I know.
That's the title from.
I know.
No, it's the title of the article. The title of the article is extremely misleading.
Oh yeah, it's clickbaity.
Yeah.
100%.
The thing is, like, we had a story we skipped over, but like, AMD is working on ARM-based solutions, right, for their CPUs with APU support, right? So that's a thing that Valve's going to go with the next generation. However, I think that the big thing to take away from this is that SteamOS 3 public release is closer than we think it is. This is gearing up to like a public SteamOS release.
Absolutely.
Because supporting, like right now, supporting all the different hardware configurations is just really difficult for Valve. It's a Sisyphean task, pretty much. But the fact that Proton is now supporting this stuff makes it much simpler for them to move forward with a public release of Proton.
I agree. I think
SteamOS 3.
I think, because let's look at the Steam hardware survey as of October of this year. 77% of people use NVIDIA GPUs, whereas only 15% of gamers use AMD hardware. And that also includes like the Steam Deck, obviously. Like it wouldn't have made sense to release an OS that 77% of your users can't use effectively, because historically speaking, NVIDIA's always had issues with all of their NVIDIA functions on Linux desktops, including things like DLSS. And also, GameScope didn't really work that well with NVIDIA drivers, and like GameScope's like the secret sauce. It's what makes it does a lot. I'm not the best person to explain what it is, but the Steam Deck uses GameScope extensively, I'll just say.
Yeah, GameScope is like in Windows 7, you had like the transparent windows, right? You could see through the title bar. That's what sort of the equivalent of GameScope is. It's the thing that composites all of the windows together. It controls the screen size and like the resolution that the application gets reported. The screen is running through. It's a very important thing, and the fact that most NVIDIA cards on the market that are being used by the vast majority of gamers don't support like Wayland, right? Like that's a big deal. And they have like really bad support for other like function calls that AMD supports, because the drivers are open source for AMD. Now we're having NVIDIA support for or NVIDIA is open sourcing a lot of their graphics stack, which is good, and we're getting more of this kind of like proprietary NVIDIA technology being supported, which is also good for gamers. Dude, I'm so old. I've been in the Linux community for so long that like I remember when NVIDIA removed features from their drivers that made their Linux drivers better than the Windows drivers. And they intentionally made their Linux drivers worse for their users than because Microsoft had a fit or whatever. I don't know the reason, but they just did it because they wanted feature parity with Windows, is what they said. Like this is the kind of relationship we've had with NVIDIA for so long. So I don't know. I think it's important that this is happening here for, like you said, high tech, 77% or so.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think they should have released SteamOS 3 without the NVIDIA support and done AMD and kind of pulled a little bit of a, hey, NVIDIA also need to get your crap together, but and just done iterative. I don't like big releases. I like iterative ones. I'd like them to just release it so that I could use it on other AMD devices and then just do iterations until they got GeForce or like NVIDIA support. But I think you're onto something, Gardiner, and I think this would have made it for an even better title than what they did, and would have been more honest, is that this is probably a gear towards, like, a drive towards SteamOS 3 being officially released.
I think the other thing to remember is that this is part of Proton Experimental, which is a compatibility layer that is used on any Linux hardware, not just or Linux software, not just on the Steam Deck or with SteamOS. So I don't know. I do agree that they are gearing up towards a public SteamOS release, and this is a big step forward to them, or for that. I don't know if I would say that this is a clear indicator specifically for that, just because, this is something that anyone who's using a Linux desktop with an NVIDIA card will now be able to use.
True,
so,
but they
influence... I think if this was part of like the SteamOS, like a SteamOS beta update, like if they mentioned something like that, kind of like what they did with the ROG Ally, I would say that's more of a clear, like, oh, they're really pushing it now. But this one could just be that they are bringing up support for the Proton layer for Linux desktops. Though, again, I do agree that personally this is a way of them showing that they are gearing more towards a public SteamOS release. It's just, I think it's also important to note that Proton Experimental is not just used on SteamOS too.
Absolutely.
Proton itself, right? Like Mac OS uses it, like a lot of places, and it is based off of other software that came before it. It is an iterative piece of software, but Valve pays, I think, 100 developers contracts to develop Proton. And if you look into like costs of developers, like going back to like a way past, they've got to be putting in like at least $1 million at least a year into Proton, at least. If they're really good developers, they're probably a couple million. I'd be shocked if they weren't putting a lot of money into this. But which is awesome for everyone else. But I think that this is kind of like a tracer kind of thing. SteamOS, if you're right about it needs to work with both NVIDIA and AMD, we're going to see all the changes happening for the most part in Proton, not in the SteamOS other areas. So I think it's a good indicator that things are to come. That being said, could SteamOS 3 launch without DLSS 3 support? Of course it could have.
I don't think it'd be a good idea for them to do it, though.
Really?
Yeah,
Do you think it's that important?
I think being able to support NVIDIA cards as much as possible is just as important for a public operating system release.
Think about what this actually is, right? Because DLSS 3, as far as I know, already is supported on Linux, right? But DLSS 3 support within Proton means that games running through Proton now can actually access the native drivers, the native DLSS support. So what that means is like we've had DLSS for quite a while, as far as I understand it, but having Proton apps be able to access that is new, at least for DLSS 3. We've had it for DLSS 2. So if you think about like what a product, like a final version of SteamOS 3 would look like for end users who are going to primarily have Linux cards and who are going to primarily be playing Windows games, to not then have DLSS 3 support in those games would feel fundamentally broken for them.
Really?
So having this,
I don't know if I agree with that. That's like FSR 3 kind of thing going on. I don't have my card's old enough. I don't think mine supports DLSS 3, and so
No, but I think for the future of games in general, with I mentioned this before, but with how reliant some of the biggest games are on upscaling, and they are starting to be more reliant or using frame generation, I think not having the option will block out some of the biggest releases on Linux, and that would be
interesting.
That would be a bad.
And if you're the kind of person who is going to be playing a game through SteamOS 3 on your custom built PC with an NVIDIA graphics card, you're going to know if your card supports DLSS 3 or not.
I agree.
And so to not be able to do that,
I'm just curious. Like, I don't think it's a must-have for SteamOS 3 to release. But once again, I'm an iterative person. I would have preferred them to release it already, so I could not have to rely on other distros that are not that Bazite's bad, but like I've had to rely on previous ones before that were just not great to install and everything like that. So I might have a little bit of a lens of a content creator that wants easier access to SteamOS.
I don't think having DLSS 3 frame generation support is like imperative or like a must have.
Right.
But I think it would be a big talking point of why not to install SteamOS if you're comparing it with like Windows, for instance.
Yeah, if they're gearing up for, I guess, a full like desktop everything support, then yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
If they were gearing up for
as much as they possibly could, I think DLSS 3 and frame generation would be towards the top of the list if they're trying to like compete against, like, say, hey, don't use Windows, use us. If you've got,
is that their goal though?
The most powerful card, you can use it with SteamOS. Because
like they've mentioned that they don't care about handhelds that don't have the trackpads on them. They don't necessarily want to support non-trackpad handhelds, at least in the past, but I don't know if they've changed their goals and minds on that because it is Valve.
I think they have.
I believe. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think Valve would support. I think Valve is looking to support any handhelds at this point, especially with the public release. I don't think they're going to block it out. Just like how we saw like SteamOS implementing or including a ROG Ally fix. I think they could have merged it and not brought it up at all because it was just included in.
Yeah.
But
also,
they did.
Valve
they specifically mentioned it.
Yeah, Valve's also in a position where, like, Microsoft said all Windows 11 PCs now have to have TPMs. Valve is kind of in a similar position where they can say, hey, if OEMs are going to ship SteamOS on their handhelds, got to have a trackpad, at least one, right? I think that that's reasonable for them to do.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I don't think they will do that, but I'd really like them to do that.
I would like them to do that.
I would like them to do that. I think trackpads are an essential to any handheld PC.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. Even though I do I know, I'm sorry. I am the one.
No, it's totally okay. I'm judging you, but it's okay.
No, you know what? I feel judged, and that's what's important. Earlier when we were talking about this, I was like, I don't touch my trackpads unless I'm in desktop mode. And I only do desktop mode because I tinker with things and I build things, and I've developed software in desktop mode. Mm-hmm. But then again, I have keyboard and mouse for
Windows that. Handheld. What if you were stuck using Windows OS?
If I stuck using Windows OS, like with
I feel like trackpads would be even more essential.
They're even more essential, I would agree. But with my Ally, I don't leave Armory. I use it for gaming, and so I don't really. My point is, I don't really need it, but. Mm-hmm. I respect and I love fidgeting with it more than anything. So I respect that they could add it to more, and I wouldn't mind it. It's just like smaller form factors that would be able to use SteamOS would not be able to have a trackpad, I don't think, very easily, right?
That's true.
Unless you do a PS Vita thing.
That's why I don't think Valve will mandate it.
Yeah.
I don't think they will end up doing that. Would I like it? Of course. I love the trackpads. I don't think I can use any handheld without them. Like it's a big reason why I don't use my Windows handheld as much, because I do still navigate the desktop, and it's just not enjoyable to use it without a trackpad. But
my Ally is a Starfield only device right now, and I haven't even played Starfield in ever. And so
I use my Ally X for basically just games that can't run on the Steam Deck, and I still have to review them. So
interesting.
It's a very that's what I'm playing, like Star Wars Outlaws on, and Stalker 2, because my desktop is a heavy hitter, but I prefer handheld play when I can. So
that's good, because you're in a good position to do that. I'm a mouse and keyboard. Even some stuff I've reviewed on the deck. I will
not. I think first-person shooters are probably the only thing that I just cannot play on any handheld. I need a mouse and keyboard for it. Yeah. It's just not enjoyable. At least the more precise ones, like Counter-Strike. I need mouse and keyboard for it.
Back for Blood, when the game first came out, or when the Steam Deck first came out, it had a really big bug. Like SteamOS had a big bug with that, to where mouse and keyboard weren't supported very well early on, and it would just shoot down. You'd only look down, and the fix it was just a nightmare. So I'm glad that they did not have mouse and keyboard good support in the beginning. I'm glad that they fixed that, because for games like Back for Blood, it's much better with mouse and keyboard. But anything else on this? I think we've kind of enjoyed this topic up quite a bit.
I think
the Game Awards.
Should we go talk about the Game Awards again?
I don't think we've touched every topic on that.
Yeah, I do want to announce that we are going to be doing a watch party of the Game Awards.
Yes.
It's going to be on the day of the Game Awards. I don't remember the time, but we'll sort that out internally, I think. We'll
throw some promos out.
Yeah, it's going to be live, so you'll see us in the flesh with no editing.
Great. Exactly. And it's going to be... I already got the platform all set up almost, so... Yeah, it will be really fun. That's a good announcement. Any other announcements you guys need to make?
Follow us on the Fediverse. We have our Fediverse accounts at off the topic, or off the console show at podcast.subscribe2.me. Sorry,
you're good.
I got distracted. I got an email.
That was solid. I'm in.
Also
good.
Also, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, You can also follow us on YouTube. Sometimes we post clips from the show.
Yes.
Funny, like out of context clips. Like the recent one, Half-Life 2 workshop mods. I think that one did pretty well. People like that. I think people want more clips.
I liked it. Okay, well then, yes. Follow us in multiple places. You'll be surprised, I think, in the future, and you'll be getting extra goodies. And you can do that by going to the description if you're on YouTube. If you're on anywhere else, then you just go to YouTube and type us in. As far as we also have some socials that are coming up, but we can, I guess, shill those out later. Noah, though, do you have anything that you want to like post, promote,
announce?
I run a website you should check out.
Steam
I
Deck
think it's pretty cool.
What's the URL for the website?
SteamDeckHQ.com.
Nice.
Perfect.
Better
than my promotion.
Thank you. I really wanted to find something solid, so
It's a good
that's
one.
what I went with.
It's a really
Hell
good
yeah.
one. It's a good URL and everything. Like, I like it.
Thank you. I'm
I
proud of
gotta
it.
ask: is it what is it built on? Is it built on
WordPress.
WordPress. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. I did not build it. Our web developer is the one that built and
Yeah.
designed it. He deserves all the credit for it. I just came up with the idea, write and work on it every day.
As a web developer, I think I've told you this. Your website is just amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I agree.
It's all him. It's all him. That's our web dev Shelby. He crushed it.
Yeah, there's
Nice.
a lot. Like same. I do a lot of web dev, and it's really good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So unless you have something else high tech, like no.
Nothing at the
High-tech.
time, unfortunately.
I gotta go answer my door.
Go for it, man.
Okay, well, Gardiner's out. He'll be back, but let's end this podcast. Thank you guys for watching, listening, and just being a part of the community, building it. We're going fast, and you want to hop on for the ride to enjoy all the topics that we talk about each week. Eventually, in the future, we will be having additional ways for you to interact with us, hopefully. So keep an eye out for all that stuff, and thank you guys for watching. Say goodbye, everyone.
All right, see you guys later. All right, that was a good
Peace
show.
out. Oh, Gardner, you want to say your byes?
It's still recording.
Your sweet goodbyes?
It
Gardner.
has to be very
Oh,
sweet though.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
talking to you, Gardner.
Sorry. Hey, yeah. Bye, everybody.
Awesome. Later.